Yes, it is that time. Time for Captain's Cast. Captain's Cast on Swords and Starships. Hi, how are you? I'm Captain Garrett. This is the Captain's Cast on Swords and Starships. Welcome! And, boy, I have got to tell you, Ahsoka, would you like to see what happened last time on Ahsoka? We're going to talk about it. That is, would you like to see what didn't happen on Ahsoka? I've said the show is a soap opera. It is. You've heard of the 1 degree of separation rule, like your 1 degree of separation, or like the 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. You know, everyone's played this game. 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. And I'm going to tell you right now, this show is 6 degrees from a story. It's like 6 degrees away from something happening. So we're going to talk about Ahsoka. I'm so disappointed to have to report this to you. I mean, look, yes, as one part, I don't think that the failure of Disney Star Wars should be rewarded. You know, just because they get lucky, they just luck into something that's a good story, like Andor, for example. It should not spare them the consequences of their decisions. That being said, I'm not rooting for Star Wars to go down in flames, but it's going down. And I have to tell you, how low can you go? That's the game we're playing now. That's the game we're playing. How many times do we have to do this before someone wakes up? So, yeah, Ahsoka. There was Tom is in the chat. Ahoy, Tom. Welcome aboard. Good to see you. I didn't put up a little announcement today. Didn't put up an announcement card. So hopefully some folks wander in. We are live on Rumble, YouTube, and X. I'm checking the feed right now. There it is. What a thing of beauty. We should be live on X. Yep, there it is. There it is. Live. And we are live on Rumble. So, yes, chats. Send them all. We are here to have some fun today. Here to have some fun talking about Ahsoka, talking about a little bit of... We need to talk about the drama with Nerdrotic. So we'll get into that. apparently, Gary over at Nerdrotic, you know, it's so funny. Every single week, right? All of the free-thinking YouTubers, let's call them, are out here saying what they think, what's on the top of their mind, and they say about 1,000 jokes that are edgy, that would piss off the Wokies. So every once in a while, somehow one of them just gets through it, and it stirs up the hornet's nest. And so one of them got through, and I just find it hilarious that once in a while, you know, that the psychotics among us decide to wake up and just become angry about something. And that happened recently, so we'll talk about that. And this, apparently, it's so funny. We have to go through this every single time with these shows. Will this be the show that finally has high ratings for Star Wars? And it's like, no, it won't. No, it won't. Because you don't understand the formula that makes Star Wars something people want to watch. Like that. You know, can we just stop beating around the bush? Let's just quit beating around the bush for a second. Because I watch a lot of reviews. I read a wide range of opinions. And there's kind of there's a kind of basic idea when we're talking about what's wrong with Disney Star Wars, what's wrong with Marvel. And we talk about story structure, and we talk about political intrigue at the various companies. And we talk about the executives being not very creative and out of touch and blah, blah, blah. The reality is it all comes down to one thing. At some point in the late 20th century and the early 21st century, Western civilization decided to hate itself, decided that everything it had built was terrible. All of its story structures and archetypes were awful and were in support of white supremacy and and the patriarchy and heteronormative standards of behavior and all kinds of things that a small minority of radical crazies in our societies decided were the priorities of mankind and have decided to force it and have set about undoing and subverting every single cultural norm, every single cultural shared experience that we have as humans, and have set about basically rifting and tearing apart all of society. Now that sounds very dramatic, but my point is, what is the purpose of something like Star Wars posting a tweet that assumes its fans is going to have a racist reaction to one of their actors? What is the purpose of that? I would submit to you the purpose of that is not to bring people together or to deal with toxicity. It is a culture of division. The purpose of that is a system, and maybe it's not the individuals necessarily involved. We all become unwitting servants of certain memes in society, but at its core, it is the decision that it's us against them. And the decision has been taken, especially where it concerns the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Star Wars universe. The decision has been taken that it's us, that is strong female women and aggrieved minorities. It is us against them being the typically male audience, but not all, the typically tilting male audience that enjoys adventure in space. That audience has been decided that they must be thrown down and everything that they love must be destroyed, and they are to be laughed at when they're upset about it. And this is not me complaining. I mean, it's just, this is what they do. I'm just saying, why have we gotten here? And you can argue it's bad storytelling. You can argue it's laziness. You can argue it's corporate greed. And certainly all of those things are a factor. But at its core, there is a new Hays Code in effect. And it's, in some places it's worse than others, but I would argue it is at its absolute worst in Disney. And this is on display with Ahsoka. The decision, nobody starts with the question of like, what would be a good Star Wars story? Are we telling a good Star Wars story? No, it starts with the premise of Star Wars is very patriarchal. It is a very male franchise, and that's bad. Ew, gross. And how do we correct the injustice that something that predominantly men enjoyed as an adventure tale, that it existed, that was a thing which existed? How do we correct that crazy injustice? Well, I'll tell you how we correct it. We turn Star Wars into an all-female soap opera. By the way, soap operas are not even all-female. They wouldn't be interesting if they were, because soap operas are generally about relationships between men and women, for the most part. And what is the audience of soap operas? Predominantly women. So even their narrative, the narrative that is driving this bizarre approach to storytelling that has resulted in the most boring, bland, banal iteration of Star Wars I have ever seen, it's not even based in reality, because anything that is primarily aimed at women as a story structure should have men and women in it. Anything that is primarily, as in they are important characters and that there's balance between those characters' roles. And the same is true of anything aimed at males. It is a red herring. It is a canard. It is a straw man argument to say that there weren't strong women in Star Wars, or there weren't minorities in Star Wars. But this is the bizarre worldview that has resulted in a new kind of Hays Code. That is, back in the 50s, you couldn't show men and women in the same bed. You had to have, kisses could only last 3 seconds on screen. Well, we have a new Hays Code, and it's the woke Hays Code. It's the Bechdel test, right? Which is not even a real sociological argument. It originated as a joke, but now it's taken literally. And what it has resulted in is propaganda storytelling. So I just thought, why don't we just check in? Why don't we just check in on Star Wars? I want to play for you, and we'll just see if the stream survives it. I want to play for you a scene from Ahsoka that How can I even describe this? It makes me crawl in my chair to watch a scene like this, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. In just a moment, roll the tape. Roll the tape. My theoretical producer, who absolutely does exist.
Chancellor Mothma, senators.
Hera, you look well. How's young Jason?
Fine, Chancellor. In fact, he's on board. Somewhere.
Forgive me, Madam Chancellor, but if we could just hear the General's report. We're late as it is.
Quite right, Senator Ziona.
My investigation into the attack on the Vesper led me to the Santhe shipyards on Corellia, where I was attacked by Imperial loyalists, still working for Morgan Elsbeth.
We have former Imperials working throughout every level of the New Republic government, and they have all taken an oath of loyalty.
Yes, but I believe their activity speaks to a larger operation, involving Thrawn.
How can I describe what this is like to me? This is like watching an HR meeting at a corporate office. This is the most insanely boring. Hail, Silverback. Welcome in. Ahoy. Do I have this in the right ear? Is it that? Okay, that's why I'm... Okay, that one's supposed to go in the left. This one's in the right. Sorry about that. User error. You know, there are so many things about this that bother me. For one, the way that the entire council is dressed, something about it seems off. I mean, it doesn't feel... This whole situation just doesn't feel interesting to me. This is all stuff that could have happened in backstory, right? Ostensibly, why is she here? She's here to report what she stumbled into in the last episode, which is that a bunch of Imperials were working at the shipyard. There was no actual... This is an important point. This is referring to events in episode 2. There were no actual, like, investigations. There was nothing, you know, say one thing for Attack of the Clones, but at least when Obi-Wan Kenobi, right, goes to the cloners' planet, and he's investigating the mystery of the Sifo Dyas's army, which I still cannot make heads or tails of that plot. But it was at least interesting to see Obi-Wan kind of talking to them, kind of trying, you know, he confronts Jango Fett, and he has to kind of ferret out, is this guy lying to me or not? And he's kind of, he uses the Force to kind of sense things. There's just none of that with this investigation, episode 2. They kind of just stumble into the shipyard, and it just so happens that the bad guys are in the ship that they needed to catch, and they're leaving at just that moment. And the bad guys that are sitting right next to them in the control room very helpfully declare for the Empire as they futilely attack a Jedi that they have no hope of defeating and are quickly cut down. So she's reporting on all this. Why? Well, presumably, the purpose of this scene is to create dramatic tension, which is this is the very first scene in episode 3. What we should be establishing here is danger. We should be this is the 3rd episode, folks. This is the 3rd episode. We should be establishing a serious big bad. We should be establishing that there is a serious threat to the galaxy. Hera, in this scene, the protagonist, she should have a goal that we as the viewer are in tune with, right? We are with her by this point. We are invested in her quest, or at least what it is that she wants. There should be some stakes. There should be something on the line. She is here to ask for something she desperately needs from the New Republic. Now, that's kind of the primary purpose. And there should be some kind of friction in this scene, which is there is cross purposes. Now, I would say, as a storyteller, what is your purpose in this scene? You're trying to establish two things. You're trying to establish the threat that Hera and Hera's goal to stop that threat. What does she need to stop it? So that's number one. And number two, we should be getting some kind of insight into the New Republic. Now, considering in theory, if Star Wars were good right now, in theory, this would be a window for us as the viewer into what was the galaxy like after Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia, after they threw down the Empire, their glorious victory on Endor, and they destroyed the second Death Star, and everyone singing and dancing in the forest with the Ewoks. What does the galaxy look like shortly after all of that? Now, I, as a Star Wars fan, would have been interested in that. I would have been interested in seeing what is the New Republic like. And all I can tell you, my dear sailors and Stardaughts, is it is like the DMV. It's the freaking DMV is the New Republic. What does Hera want? What is at stake? And how does she get what she needs to stop it? And two, what is the New Republic like? And what is the sense of menace that we get from either what the New Republic does not see on the horizon? Like, what is the mistake that they're making? I mean, in theory, what Dave Filoni is ostensibly trying to answer here is how did the First Order, as if, assuming we cared, how did the First Order rise from the ashes of the Empire and create this massive military that was able to basically destroy the New Republic? And why didn't the New Republic do anything about it? And I submit to you, it's not interesting enough to just suggest that the New Republic, that they were just idiots. I mean, this seems to be the modern trope. Like, if you need a reason for something to go wrong for the good guys or the bad guys, you just portray them as idiots. The very first scene in Ahsoka, the first episode, is a New Republic cruiser captain who's being hailed by what are claiming to be Jedi in a lone fighter, and they're asking to come aboard. No reason given, they just want to come aboard. Now, I, of course, have a whole bunch of questions, like, why doesn't the captain ask what is their business? Like, he doesn't believe that they're really Jedi? Fine, then ask them about that. What would Captain Kirk do? Open a frequency. Let's hail them. Let's have a conversation. Oh, yes, Captain so-and-so, we are the esteemed Jedi of such and such. How did you survive Order 66? Where have you been all these years? Did you help the rebellion? I don't remember seeing you before. You don't seem like you're really Jedi. Oh, we are really Jedi because reasons, because evidence. Well, what is it that you want? Well, we want this or that. We have with this first scene in the first episode, there's no context for anything at all. It's just a New Republic cruiser stumbling upon Jedi. Okay, what's their mission? What are they doing? Why are they out there? They're just there. Things just appear in the plot when they need to appear in the plot in this new form of writing. And so what possible reason could allow in the plot for the evil Jedi to just come aboard and arrogantly slaughter everyone so we can just have a cool hallway scene? Oh my God, he got a hallway scene. That means he's a badass. How do we make that happen in the plot? Well, we just make the captain be an idiot. This is literally how the first scene progresses. These Jedi want to come aboard. There's no Jedi. That's ridiculous. They're not Jedi. Have them come aboard so we can tell them they're not Jedi. He then goes down and proceeds to get slaughtered by the not Jedi. And we're treated to Ray Stevenson, fine actor, saying, we are no Jedi. And what a letdown that is, because when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, well, that looks like one of the cool scenes in the show. And unfortunately, it isn't, because you cannot have bad guys seem badass when they're just poning a bunch of idiots. So I don't like this fact that Hera is basically just an idiot here. Okay, so we're going to roll the tape. We're going to roll the tape, and you tell me if the New Republic is interesting to you.
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I have reason to believe he's alive.
You are certain of this?
If I could get approval to send a task force to the Denab system, I could find out.
Isn't this just another attempt to gain New Republic resources to aid in what has ultimately been your personal quest to find Ezra Bridger? And that you conveniently use a threat of Thrawn's return to acquire those resources that could be put to a more practical purpose.
Were you ever in the war?
Such as building roads and bridges. Oh my God, this is so mind-numbing. he's like, well, the Senate Appropriations Committee doesn't want to appropriate. We could be spending that money here at home on roads and bridges, and you want a task force to go. This is the thing. This is the thing, right? Imagine that you've never seen Star Wars Rebels. You have never seen Star Wars The Clone Wars. You don't know all the Filoni stuff. You're just new to this show. Who the hell is Admiral Thrawn? If you've never read the books, who's that? But they're not following the books anyway. They're just stealing the best parts of the books and repurposing them for Filoni. Filoni Wars. It's Kurtzman Trek and Filoni Wars now. You don't know who Admiral Thrawn is. You don't know why he's a threat. And even if he is, the idea that Admiral Thrawn is alive. Admiral Thrawn? Oh no, he might be alive, which means he might return to do what? Like to do what? Like, we don't know what his plan is. We don't even know if he exists. This is like, let's try this a different way. I have reason to believe that Darth Vader is alive. Darth Vader? That's not possible. I believe he could return. That's actually kind of scary. At least that. But see, that could only be scary because we know so much from the movies about who Vader is. But I would still argue that's thin for the beginning of episode 3, because really that's a better conversation for episode 1, right? I think Vader might have returned. A better conversation for episode 3 is we have reason to believe they have cloned Vader and they are planning to assassinate the council and decapitate the government as revenge. Now that would create some well, what evidence do you have for this plot? And instead of, I would like a small, reasonably funded task force to investigate this possibility. And instead of all this bureaucratic gobbledygook, it could just be, I want us to devote an entire squadron to assaulting this planet where we believe Vader is being cloned. So in other words, I'm saying even if it were Vader's name being floated, we would still need more to create tension in this scene. And then we get to the part of the conversation where it's, I'm going to need to speak to the manager.
War, Senator?
That could be put to a more practical purpose.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
No.
Just sat back and waited to see who came out on top?
God, this is, I cannot stand this actor. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is freaking awful. She has the most snarky, she has that little show. You just sat back and let us fight. God, you are really a loser, Senator. She's just got this at Los Angeles snarkiness that is absolutely insufferable. She's got the crazy eyes too. Critical Drinker pointed this out of like those crazy eyes.
The Imperial fleet is scattered and broken. They have no centralized command.
Unless Thrawn returns.
Make your point, General.
I've spent most of my life fighting a war, and that's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one.
Grand Admiral Thrawn is dead. And I'm sorry to say it is my opinion that your friend Ezra Bridger heroically died with him.
You don't know that.
General, allow me a moment to speak with my colleagues.
She has absolutely. So here's a sent. Oh shoot, I forgot to full screen that. My apologies. Anyhow, so here's what's at stake. Admiral Thrawn might be alive. The council argues, no, we don't want to spend money on a small task force to investigate this possibility because that's better spent at home on roads and bridges or something like that. Well, the Empire's gone. Their fleets are disorganized. Now, when I hear that, I think, well, that is a relatively cavalier attitude, don't you think? Like that would be like saying, like, oh, we captured Berlin, but there's still pockets of Hitler's troops out there just holding on. but they're scattered and disorganized. I mean, it's no big deal. It's like, no big deal. Like, no, you need to go hunt down all those Imperials and get rid of them. This is an interesting thing about the new Star Wars. Their take on what would be considered the Reconstruction era of the post-Empire. This just tells me our culture really does not have the backbone that it used to have. These writers, they're not students of military history. They're not they say Star Wars has always been political. Don't you know that, troll? It's like, well, for people who argue Star Wars is political, they're pretty politically harebrained, if you ask me. When the Allies took over Germany after World War II and Japan, a process was begun that denazified all of Germany. We eradicated all of their symbols. We eradicated every level. Now, there were still those that were kind of like ex-officers that were cleared and were still allowed to be part of their society. There just were too many to get rid of all of them. But we hunted down all the worst criminals. And we did the same thing with Japan. It was basically like, no, we're not going to allow anyone that still believes in the Japanese Empire to be in power. We're going to remove all those things and then nurse these two societies back to democracy. And what's interesting to me is this take on the Reconstruction era Star Wars seems to be that the New Republic is like, well, as long as there's not a central leadership, we're fine. We're fine with all these Imperials just living in the outskirts of the galaxy. Like, this is ridiculous. So basically, what's at stake here is a military leader might be alive and might be able to return. And if he does return, he might be able to organize some of those scattered troops into a central command, which might lead to a war in the galaxy. And Hera desperately wants to prevent this. Is this supposed to create tension in the plot? Like, is this supposed to make the show exciting? That's like 4 degrees of separation from an actual threat. And what is the New Republic's rationale for not helping? It's like, well, we're chill. Like, nah, we're cool. They're not organized. Well, they might get organized. It's not going to happen. Anyway, we got to go. This show is like watching paint dry. It's like watching paint dry. So there you go. Here's why don't we take a look at a fun little article? I love to study the species that is defending Ahsoka. And I stumbled upon something kind of fun here. This from CBR. Ahsoka Episode 3 review. Fun Jedi space adventure stymied by a quick runtime. Oh no, oh my God. So this training scene, right? So it opens up with this training scene. And I'm going to tell you right now, like the old days of Luke learning to use the Force under Obi-Wan's guidance are gone. They have thrown the Force out the window in this show. This whole sequence where it looks like what they're trying to do is mirror Obi-Wan teaching Luke Skywalker on the Falcon. Ad. Get out of my way, ad. It won't let me use my ad blocker. But the interesting thing about Luke learning from Obi-Wan was the purpose of putting the helmet over his eyes was what? It was so that he would stop relying on his senses and he would start relying on the Force. This is back when the Force was apparently male. And what I remember liking about that scene was the idea of faith, right? Because he's like, I can't see anything. And the idea was that if you have faith in the Force, it will guide you, and that will be a more powerful sense than if you rely on your eyes and your reflexes to catch the little drone shooting at you. And this is what was teaching a young Jedi to actually start using that spiritual energy, which pays off nicely, as we all know, in the trench run when Luke has missed the first shot with his proton torpedo, and he's the last hope to take out the Death Star. And then he hears Obi-Wan's voice saying, use the Force, Luke. Use the Force. And the whole point, and Luke, you've turned off your computer. What's going on? It's because he's learning to trust that spiritual energy, which is it operates at a higher level, and it does not require the senses. That is the whole purpose of that scene. In this episode of Ahsoka, we get this whole scene where she's training Sabine, but instead of it being about learning to use the Force, learning to trust it, learning to trust yourself and that spiritual energy, the whole thing is literally like, listen, use your ears. Where am I in the room? She's literally like, so she puts on this blinder, right? And so she, just like you see in that screenshot there, and she's holding out the sword, and Ahsoka will move to a part of the room and she'll be like, can you tell where I am? She's like, oh, you're right over there next to Hu Yang. And then the camera pans over and she's like, no, I'm over here. And I'm like, this is like a South Park episode. Because it's like, no, I'm over here. It's like, oh, where I think you're here now. She said, no, I'm here. How'd you do that? I don't. Now I'm here. But there's no mention of the Force. There's no mention of you of like reach out with your feelings, you know. And I'm thinking we have gone full post Star Wars here. Full post Star Wars. I also think there is so much this. First of all, why do we want to see? Why do we want to see Sabine learn the Force? You know, I remember when Luke Skywalker was, you know, he was enticed by Obi-Wan Kenobi to join the rebellion. Why? To fight the Empire. And we hear Luke say, I hate the Empire as much as anyone else, but my parent, you know, my aunt and uncle need me on the farm. And then later, when his aunt and uncle are brutally killed by the Empire, then it's like, okay, I'm in this now. And we understand that Luke has a very powerful motivation for wanting to learn the ways of the Force. He wants it. You know, this is another important component. I think that, you know, in this modern realm of Star Wars, where it's all just now soap opera in space, we've forgotten that there was a very real reason why the Force was such a powerful idea. It was because it was the idea that, you know, people that are oppressed and are outnumbered and outgunned by evil forces that have all the resources in the galaxy, all the military might in the galaxy, all the levers of political power. You know, basically the Empire has total dominion over the entire galaxy. There's a sense of absolute hopelessness on the part of any rebellion. So the idea that something and that is in part of that display of absolute total dominion is just the sheer material power, you know, the absolute massive size of the Death Star and the destroyers, the legions of stormtroopers. You know, those are all, you know, real world military material weapons and forces that are arrayed against our heroes. And our heroes have one thing on their side. And what is that thing? It is a spiritual energy that the Empire would laugh at, called the Force. It is a little known spiritual energy that is available to all living beings. Now, that's a very powerful idea, because the idea that a spiritual faith can overcome evil, that has all the weapons and advantages in the world, that's a very primal and powerful storytelling idea. So it's not just that the Force was cool and that it allowed you to use lightsabers. It was that the Force represented the ability of the good and the few to overcome the evil and the mighty. That's really what the Force represented. And it also represented the hubris of the Empire, because, you know, there's that famous scene, I find your lack of faith disturbing. You know, that was Vader, who is a relic of the Jedi Order, basically coming up against the fact that the rest of the Imperials don't subscribe to the notions of the Force. Only the Emperor and Vader actually know this truth. Only they know the truth that the Force exists. It's real. It's powerful. It can aid anyone, which is why they have to squash it. And it's also why, the Emperor, I think, seems to encourage a lack of faith among his ranks. He doesn't want all the Imperials to believe in the Force because he wants to own it. The Emperor wants to have total ownership of the Force. I know. So my point here is that the Force wasn't just a cool thing in the Star Wars universe. It was a thematic element. It was a thematic element which was establishing that there's more to the world. There's a higher power in this universe. There's more to the universe than what you can touch and see. And the Empire is stuck in the mindset of might makes right and weapons win the day. The Empire does everything with force. That's small f force. But the Force is something far more powerful. So I compare that to this scene we have in Ahsoka, in which the Force is not mentioned. We have no clear motivation of why does Sabine want to be a Jedi? To overcome what? To stop what? All we know right now is that a apparently strategically competent general of the Empire might return, which may allow the scattered remains of the Imperials to reorganize. Which may allow the Empire to become a threat again. This is like, it should be, Thrawn is here. If I were rewriting this whole season, I would start episode 1, Thrawn is returned. Now, we may not see him in the first episode, and that's fine. How about this? How about this by Dear Sailors of Stardust? Episode 1 of Ahsoka begins with Ahsoka and Sabine and Hera, played by better actors. Let's just, for at least not Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Please. Hera was a fun, likable character in Rebels. Winstead has ruined her. Absolutely ruined her. She's given her the I need to speak to the manager crazy eyes. How about this? Better actors. We start out in the normal world, and in the normal world, triumphant heroes of the rebellion are working on putting down Imperial remnants, whatever, sniffing out Imperial terrorists, something like that. That's the normal world. But their life is mostly lived kind of resting on their laurels. They have a great victory, and then a devastating attack that really strikes at the core of the New Republic. And the Imperial remnant takes credit for it or something. And it's something bad. It's like they blew up. Maybe it's not, it might be too much to say like the Senate itself, but like maybe they assassinated the Chancellor or something like that. Or they blew up a major civilian port and like massive lives were lost. And the New Republic is now feeling unsafe and frightened. And they're basically, and the Imperial remnant is promising this is only the beginning. Meet our demands, or you will see 1,000 more attacks like this. And this is terrifying, right? And so they dispatch forces to maybe if you wanted to make it more of a mystery, I would say a devastating attack. The New Republic sends forces to deal with it, and they get wiped out by a mysterious force. They don't know how, and this is puzzling to the New Republic because they thought the Empire was defeated. And so they assigned one of their best generals, General Hera, to go and investigate it. And so Ahsoka and Hera, this first episode is what I'm proposing. And so the first episode, and this is why Sabine has to abandon the gathering in the beginning, by the way. She's about to be celebrated and feted she's going to be given the key to the city on Lothal because of her grand victory. And she was going to attend, but then she got the call that this happened. And it bothered her so much that she jumped on her bike and she raced to the ship and said, I'm on this mission too. No, Sabine, you left us a long time ago. She said, no, I'm coming with you. If the Empire's back, I can't let Ezra's sacrifice be in vain. How about that? And so like, all right, hop aboard. And off they go. Wait, didn't you have somewhere to be? And she's like, no, this is where I need to be. And there's a letter. She sends like a letter of apology, or a little droid or something, just delivers a letter on her behalf. I'm sorry I couldn't attend. I've got, a mission. That would have at least made us like Sabine in her rebelliousness, because we see that she's not leaving all those people standing in the hot sun for no reason. And then off we go. We are off to an adventure. We go to discover who these terrorists are and root them out. And maybe the New Republic is convinced that these are just a bunch of wackos. These are a bunch of Imperial Remnant wackos, radicals. They're not really an organized threat. But Ahsoka senses a disturbance in the Force. Remember the Force? And she senses she's meditating. She senses a disturbance in the Force while they're on this investigation of this Imperial Remnant attack. And she says, no, there's a greater evil at work here. This isn't just a terrorist attack. This is for real. And the council doesn't believe her, right? They don't believe that there's anything, if you can bring us back proof, we'll consider it. But just find these terrorists and bring them to justice. Why don't you? And so the show proceeds apace. They find the terrorist. The terrorist makes all kinds of grandiose claims like, you have already lost, you rebel scum. The Empire is coming back. Wild-eyed crazy. We haven't even seen, I don't know if we've seen Ray Stevenson's characters yet. I would say maybe he shows up at the end or something like that. But basically, we're bringing these terrorists to justice, and then the bad guys close in. They attack our heroes. They strike back in some way, and our heroes narrowly escape. And as they're escaping, they see that their enemy is Grand Admiral Thrawn. Maybe they just somehow get a glimpse of him. Maybe as they're escaping captivity on a ship. I don't know. They just see a glimpse of Admiral Thrawn, and they see that it's him, and Ahsoka's feeling is confirmed that this is an organized effort and we need to dispatch a force. And literally episode 2 could begin with Hera saying, the results of our investigation, we narrowly escaped with our lives, but this is not just a lone terrorist action. This is real. Grand Admiral Thrawn is back. He's dead. How could that be? We saw him. It could be a clone. It's not a clone. Ahsoka says, I felt his presence. I fought him before. It was him. He's organizing an actual military force. That's not, how could that be? It's like Admiral Thrawn was the most, and this is where exposition would be helpful, because we have to assume that our viewer has not seen Star Wars Rebels. And so we just, a couple lines of dialogue to explain, if this is true, then Thrawn would be the greatest threat ever because of, 36 separate combat engagements, all victories until his last. He was the most devastating commander since Grand Moff Tarkin. Anyway, I just think that would be a more interesting story, don't you? There you go. But no, what we get is, why am I being a Jedi? Because Jedis are cool. On top of being a live-action Rebel Season 5, that, I will give this writer at CBR absolute credit. You are correct. This is just a live-action Rebels Season 5 and not a good one. And semi-heir to the Empire retelling, Ahsoka wants to position itself as another link between Star Wars original series and the sequel trilogy. A way to explore how the New Republic's filings, I think what you mean there is failings, blinded them to Imperial schemes. Tom says, excellent recreation. Where would Ezra fit into the beginning of your show? Why, that is an excellent question, Tom. Look at this. I could show comments. The Captain has leveled up. Captain has leveled up. Where would Ezra fit in? Ezra would be absolute pure backstory. In fact, here's what I would say. I would not even hold out the hope that Ezra is alive. I would say that Sabine this is a backstory element, okay? This is a backstory element. Ezra was a friend. I think it would be better if he were a love interest, a teen, they were teenagers together. I think that he's a lost love, the one that got away. That's how I would do it. You wouldn't have to do that. They could be friends, but come on, what's with not having romance in stories anymore? I mean, what's the big deal? The Wokies, that's what it is. They're not, this is the Hays Code. We're not allowed to have girls like boys. It's just not allowed to happen anymore. So yeah, screw it. That's what it would be. He was, at the time, she was rebellious and she didn't need no man. And now she kind of misses him because they kind of had a romance that was starting to come to the surface, but then he got killed. So this is all in backstory. And we would see hints of this, a picture in her apartment, things like that. A line of dialogue here or there, like, this was the day, 10 years. Also, what time frame are we in? I cannot figure out what time frame we're in this show, because Jason, her son, who was a kid in Star Wars Rebels, is still a kid in this show. He shows up with green hair and everything. It's so cringe. And he's still a 10-year-old. So I'm like, how many years have passed? I have no idea. But anyway, and I would just say, this is the day 10 years ago that we lost him. It's like, I know it's hard for all of us, but look, he would be proud of us if he could see what we achieved with the rebellion. And that's it. Little line of dialogue, a little bit of exposition, a little backstory, and we get the feeling that this is a wound. It's a wound. But we have more important things to think about, such as Admiral Thrawn planned this whole attack. He's back. This is crazy. We have to convince the Republic this is real. And if they're not going to do anything, we have to go do something. Hello, that's a great episode 2, by the way. Now, where does Ezra come into it? He's a surprise in the third act of the season. That's what I would say that, like, around I think it would make sense that if Thrawn is alive, maybe Ezra is alive, but I would honestly drill it home early in the season. Ezra's dead. Like, he's dead. Even Thrawn even says, I watched him die. I can't remember how Rebels ended exactly, so you'd have to, fix the continuity there. But anyway, but then in Act 3, we get a hint that Ezra might be alive, or a total surprise, he shows up. He just shows up, and it's and it throws the characters into a kind of emotional chaos, but in a good way, because, I would say at kind of a low point in the story is when I would have him come back in, or have the evidence come in. This could be a nice little hook for the end of an episode, like at a real low point in our character's journey when they've just suffered a terrible defeat. At the very last moment in the episode, they find some little piece of evidence that shows the unthinkable. Ezra's alive. And that's the end of the episode. And then the next couple episodes, he comes back into the story. That's how I would deal with it. I would make it a far from the realm of, like, he could be alive. I would totally remove that from the first 2 acts of the season and just have him be a backstory element. And then he's a surprise at a moment when our characters need it. At a moment when our characters need that shot in the arm. That's when he shows up. And I would say, how does Ray Stevenson's bad guy fit into it, since we're on the subject? I would say just make him the lieutenant who attacks them in the third act of the first episode. And I know that TV structure, you actually have more than 3 acts, but I'm just going on a 3-act structure for the first episode of the season. Just have it be that Ray Stevenson is just a force. He just shows up and kicks their asses, and they have to run from him. That's it. Nothing else. None of this crap about, I am a Jedi. I am no Jedi. Where is the map? What is our plan? Who cares? He's Darth Maul. He's just a bad guy to kick ass. Then later in the season, we can start to unspool his character. Who is he? Where does he come from? You could even have a hint that they recognize him, but they don't remember from where. Like, he seems familiar somehow. And by the way, I have to tell you, I think that could be really interesting. I find it really tantalizing, this idea that there was maybe yes, we have too many Jedi surviving Order 66. But if we're going that route, I would say if you could make it a little more plausible, how did he survive Order 66? Maybe he was an Inquisitor who quit being an Inquisitor. I don't know. But I think it would be interesting to later in the season kind of unspool his character and make him more interesting. So from Tony Stark. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked pretty well so far, I think, is the quote you're looking for there. Exactly, Tom. Exactly. And you're saying you think it's 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, but like, okay, so here's the deal. The show Star Wars Rebels took place. I mean, it had to have taken place at least a year before A New Hope is what I would guess. I would say maybe Rebels ended like the year. I think is the closest you could put it, that the first Death Star goes down. And I think we can imagine that the events of the trilogy, the original trilogy, are something like 2 or 3 years, I would guess. I'm not 2 years. Let's call it 2 years is what I would guess. And then if this is 5 years after that, then that means we're basically looking at something like 7 years after the events of Rebels. So why is Jason Sandula, who was like a 10-year-old in Rebels, or I guess what it was, let's call him 8 years old, maybe is my guess. Well, then that means he's minimum a teenager, possibly an adult by this point in the story. So it's weird. It's weird that he's not. It's weird that he's still a kid. By the way, this is not just me harping on, this is not me nitpicking. It's important to establish in a story. I know, call me old school. It's important to establish in a story when and where are we. And this just shows me that like they have no clear Bible. They have no clear sense of direction with Star Wars right now. They have no clear understanding of the lore. They're making this up as they go along, and it's really painful to watch. Yeah, as a B plot, the New Republic scenes only make up a fraction of Time to Fly, but these conversations remain deliberately unnerving. Hera, now convinced that Thrawn is still alive. Who is Thrawn? Well, you had to watch Star Wars Rebels. Well, I didn't. Attempts to present her Corellian shipyard discoveries to Chancellor Mon Mothma in hopes of providing Ahsoka and Sabine with military backup. This is so boring. Unfortunately, this is stymied by Mothma's senators, including Hamato Ziono, who? The father of Star Wars Resistance protagonist Kazuto Ziono, who? What? Who view this as a mere overreaction. These bureaucrats, yeah, by the way, that describes every new Star Wars series, by the way. Bureaucrats talking. They fail to grasp the danger. Well, that makes two of us, sir. I also fail to grasp the danger in this show. I don't understand who Thrawn is. I don't understand what he would even do when he gets here. The idea that he might reorganize the Imperial Remnant is still a vague and unclear threat, because how do we know what is the strength and size of the Imperial Remnant? Are they actually a threat even if he could organize them? How long would such an effort take? Would it take months, years, decades? The danger that a strategist like Thrawn, a strategist, ladies. We have gone from Darth Vader to the possible return of a competent strategist. That's it. We cracked it, folks. This is, yeah. Oh, well, don't worry about the Imperial Remnant. They don't have any strategists. They don't have any strategists. They could never be a threat again. Well, Chancellor, we've confirmed they now have a strategist. What? Oh my God. They have a strategist? Oh no, this is a disaster. How are we supposed to know that a military strategist somewhere in the galaxy existed? How are we supposed to know? It's not our fault. This encapsulates all of it. The New Republic stability. Thrawn poses a danger to the New Republic stability because they haven't seen Thrawn in action, and because the New Republic seems convinced the Empire cannot return. It's an arrogant move that echoes the New Republic's dismissive treatment of rehabilitated ex-Imperial officers like Dr. Pershing in The Mandalorian. Yeah, exactly. In other words, the only thing that ever moves the plot forward in current Star Wars is two things: arrogance and or stupidity. on the part of the heroes and or the villains. That's literally the only source of things moving forward in the plot. Somebody did something stupid or arrogant because they're stupid or arrogant. This is cringe writing. This is worse than writing 101. This is a total lack of imagination. This is a total lack of how to create characters. I mean, just take one. I can give you multiple examples from just this show alone. But Sabine gets Ahsoka brings her the map in episode 1. I need you to decode this map, which turns out to be a very easy to solve Rubik's cube. So she gives the Rubik's sphere to Sabine. Could you solve this for me? And Sabine's like, sure, I could solve this for you. I'm going to go somewhere where I can think. Oh, don't do that. The map should stay here. There's dangerous people out there. Just solve it here. It's a quiet ship, by the way. It's not like it's a busy ship with all kinds of shit going on. It's a quiet, nice place to work. She could just say, I'll work on the map here. Is there any kind of actual reason in the plot for her not to? Well, she needs somewhere to think. Okay. And so what do? She just goes. She just takes the map and she leaves. And it's like, so in other words, character being arrogant for no reason is the only thing that allows the bad guys to capture the map and find Thrawn. The first scene in the first episode, the only thing that allows the Jedis, the evil not Jedis, to get aboard the ship is literally the captain stupidly allowing them, and stupidly and arrogantly allowing them to come aboard for no rational reason, just to prove that he's right. This is not to say that stupidity and arrogance are not factors in some characters and plots. Certainly they are. But the point is, you can't use it as just a crutch. You can't just use it as a contrivance to explain away the plot all the time. So Tom is figuring out yes, there we go. Rebels between 5 and 1 BBY. Original series was over 4 years. Okay. I don't understand the Star Wars calendar system. I'm not, right, to be fair, I don't understand the Star Trek Stardate system either, but nobody understands that. So, well, if the original series was over a 4-year time span, that only just makes it even worse. Jason Syndulla should be an adult. He should be a full-grown man at this point. So it's a very bizarre choice. Anyway, but that would presume that I care. Well, my point, Tom, is that the kid was shown in Rebels being a kid, and Rebels was before the events of the original trilogy. Like, it doesn't, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the end of the last season of Rebels is basically getting us up to the Battle of Yavin. Now, returning to this article, was there anything else I wanted to cover in this? I think this is, wow, this is so riveting. And I have to say, the only glimpse of the New Republic I have enjoyed in the new Star Wars was from Andor. Like when they showed Mon Mothma reacting to or working with Stellan Skarsgård's character, who's the antiquities dealer who moonlights as a rebel agent. That was excellent. And that was pretty interesting. And it was the one little glimmer that we got of kind of, well, that wasn't the New Republic, that I should say, but we got a kind of window into the people that would later become the New Republic. Ahsoka and Sabine's journey. There is no journey. There is no journey. Meanwhile, it's all about reconnecting. That is accurate. That is exactly accurate. Basically, Sabine, Ahsoka, Hera, all they do is spend every episode reconnecting. It's like just light some scented candles and reminisce about what happened in Rebels. At times, their story has the feel of a bottle episode, primarily constraining itself to Ahsoka's ship as they venture to Seatos in hopes of tracking down Morgan Elsbeth and the hyperdrive she stole from Corellia. Time to Fly opens with Ahsoka observing a trading session between Sabine and oh God, I'm not going to relive this even for the sake of mocking this guy. Okay, let's just cut to the chase, shall we? There is a scene. Look, can I find this? I got to see if I can find this for you, because there is a scene. Let me make sure that the stream is working good, because I'm getting a weird... The back end here showing something weird there. Okay, cool. It looks like... Okay, we are live. All right, so there is a scene in Ahsoka where not only is the Force no longer a factor, not only do blasters just do nothing to giant crocodiles anymore, now the weapons mounted on ships cannot target anything. Like, it's worse than even the original trilogy days. Like, they can't hit anything, but even when they do hit, the blasters in space do nothing to Ahsoka's ship. They make this really pathetic pew-pew sound. They make this pew-pew-pew-pew, pew-pew-pew, pew-pew-pew-pew. And when they hit, they do no damage whatsoever to the hull. And so there's this scene where somehow, even though they're being hit with things that can never hit and never do damage, they wind up dead in the water. And while Sabine is trying to repair the ship from the cockpit, which is like, how do you repair a ship that's just been shot and damaged from the cockpit? I don't know. But she's working on repairs. So what does Ahsoka do? She puts on a spacesuit. She goes out onto the wing. She's literally a tiny figure on the wing of her ship. And she's fighting. She's basically deflecting the shots from the fighters that are attacking her ship from space, from the wing of her plane. It's like, why are they even attacking her? It's the most cringe thing. Just shoot the ship and blow it up. It will take care of the Jedi on the wing. You don't need to shoot the Jedi on the wing. Just shoot the ship. It's like, the ship literally, we're a sitting duck. We're dead in the water. They still can't hit the thing. They still can't hit it. I got to find this for you. I have got to find this for you. Ahsoka, oh my God, I don't even want to say. It's like a Monty Python sketch. Ahsoka floating in space. Can I find it with this? Oh yes, here we go. Let me see if this will get us there. Hat tip the scoundrels cantina. Oh no. Also the last clip I showed. Scoundrels cantina.
Out there? Out where? Just keep working. I'll distract them. We have them.
You know what's funny is I hear people saying that this character here is she's a little bit shall we say special. She's kind of got special needs. I'm like, and I've been wondering why people, but I'm starting to get it now. I'm starting to understand why this meme has taken hold with this character. I mean, just look at her. This. Oh my. Oh, the music is so proud of itself too.
She's on the way.
I see her.
This is unbelievable. Why would you attack the tiny human figure on the wing of the plane? I'm trying to, oh my God. I'm trying to find like the exact freeze frame here. Yeah, right there. There it is. I couldn't find it because she's so tiny that I couldn't even tell what I was looking at. Okay, look at this. This tiny, where the green shots are going. This is where she's. Why would you not just shoot the engine? It's dead in the water. Destroy the ship. It will destroy the Jedi on the ship. Now, listen to the sound effect that these things make. Beep, 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 beep. It's literally like an iPhone alarm sound. What is this? Yeah, let me helpfully fly just close enough to you so that you can attack the ship with a lightsaber. So Tom says, also, you don't need to do strafing runs in space. Just keep a safe distance and shoot. You're exactly right, Tom. You are exactly right. It's like, you don't need to do strafing runs. This is not being written by people that like military tactics. Okay, why do we say that Star Wars appeals to more of a male audience? I mean, it was created by George Lucas, a man. Okay, it was meant to appeal to, let's just face it, men are more interested in the male power fantasy, has more to do with adventures, quests, achieving things. So naturally, that's the kind of story that appeals to a male audience. And what do men typically take an interest in? I would say they typically take an interest in things like World War II history, the histories of battles and tactics. I certainly do. That tends to be less interest. Well, here's what happens when and I'm not saying that women can't write a good story, a good historical story. That is not what I am saying. I am saying that they take less of an interest in these things. Now, whether or not these are men or women in the writer's room doesn't really matter. The issue is whoever is in this writer's room do not understand military tactics. They don't care. They don't find it interesting. And what it's resulting in is really a pathetic and lazy show. There is no reason. All they would have to do is reverse thrusters, match the attitude, literally just match the distance of her ship's drift, line up the shot, and just wipe out the ship's engines, blow it up. There's no reason to have a dogfight against a ship that's not moving.
I got it! Great!
She literally pushed buttons and repaired the ship.
Look at me.
Okay, this is my favorite part. What? No, I missed it.
I got it!
Oh, it's not in this clip, I think.
Great! Look at me.
Okay, it's not in this clip, but there was a part where she literally is floating past the cockpit window. I just started laughing so hard because I'm like, she's all, she's like, hey, I need help here. This is bonkers, but not in a good way. I'm glad I was able to find that for you, my dear sailors and star nauts, because you needed to see how ridiculous this is at every level. So literally, how am I, you could just tell by the music that like they think this is so cool. Oh, this is so badass. She's on. I gotta go find one protagonist. What does he think of this? I gotta see what one protagonist thinks of this. Because I played his reaction clip last time. Yeah, here it is, episode 3. I have a question. Do you think this guy's for real? Do you think he's really this into it? No offense to Mr. Protagonist.
This is where the fun begins. Hey everyone, Jeremy here. Welcome to the channel.
Here we go.
Before we get into Ahsoka, I just have to say, welcome to...
Here we go.
There won't be a later.
Going out there. Out there? Out where?
Out.
Just keep working.
Out? Are we going out? This is something we've never done? In live action?
We have them.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh. Oh, so many cosplayers just got born.
Oh, There it is. How are you not laughing, sir?
Ooh.
Just leaving aside Mr. Protagonist here for a second. Look at how ineffective these weapons, they have neutered these weapons because they pew, 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 pew. And look at, they do nothing to the ship. Look, it's like little sparklers. It's like little sparklers hitting the ship. Pew, 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 pew. And this guy is riveted. He's just riveted by this. I can't even understand it. All right, no offense to Mr. One Protagonist. I'm nothing against the guy. I'm studying the species, okay? It's for science. It is for science. I just need to understand. And unfortunately, more research is required, okay? But it's like, there's no reason. There's no reason for the ship to pass close. So this is my problem, right? He's sitting there and he's like, oh, we've never seen this before. This is so exciting. And it's like, but how can you think that? Because the only reason it's occurring is because the characters in the scene are doing stupid things that have no tactical benefit, no tactical intelligence behind them. Effectively, what I am seeing is a bunch of incompetent boobs fighting each other. That's not interesting. That's not thrilling or exciting. In order for it to be a fun and satisfying payoff when the hero does something cool, right? In order for that to happen, there has to be real stakes involved. There has to have already been the idea that the bad guys are winning, but winning because the bad guys are dangerous. The bad guys are lethal. The bad guys are smart and they're good at what they do. Or even if they're not smart, they are so powerful or so many that they're overwhelming. And so the fun of the story is that we're watching our heroes do something surprising that turns the tables. You know, like try to think of like some good examples of this. Let me try this. See if I can find this here. I think this would be an example. How about this scene? Anybody remember this?
Now get up.
Do you remember this? We literally had just watched a whole movie about how no human is capable of defeating agents. No human can do that. And they just killed our hero. We just watched our hero get shot to death. And then this happens.
No.
There you go. It's about all I can show. I'll probably be lucky if I get away with that. But why was that satisfying? Now, if we had watched the agents spend the whole movie being incompetent boobs who made stupid decisions all the time, and the only reason that the agents were a threat is just because the plot arranged it so that they're a threat, like, then that would not have been a satisfying payoff. It was the fact that we had literally seen that the agents are physically undefeatable. They're undefeatable. They're faster, stronger, more powerful than any of our heroes, even with all their martial arts advantages. They're smart. They're lethal and efficient. They always go for the kill shot. Their objective is to kill. Their objective is your death. They will use every tool in the Matrix and in the real world to defeat Neo. It is only with that setup that it is cool to see Neo stop the bullets, because it's like, what? And quite frankly, there's a nice parallel there with the Force, right? Because the whole mythos in the Matrix is that the human spirit, and frankly, this is why I think the first Matrix film in isolation is a perfect film, but with the sequels, it kind of ruins it a little bit. But I really think they ruined this concept to a great degree with Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions. But the idea was that there's something in the human spirit that the Matrix cannot control. And I think that was an idea that was very parallel to the Force when you think about it. The Force represents that same idea, that there's something in the human spirit that is unlimited. There's something in the human spirit that can overcome anything. And I remember that was specifically what really, that was an incredible moment in the theater when I first saw that. It was just so cool because he had spent the whole movie doubting himself. So all the setup of like the idea that like the Matrix has all the advantages. The agents have all the advantages. They have all the technology, the strength, the speed, and the intelligence. They're lethal. They're an absolute undefeatable threat. So to have that payoff when the human spirit triumphs over the illusion of the Matrix, it's freaking great. So to Mr. One Protagonist over here, who's just, it's like, dude, like they haven't earned that from you. They have not earned that from you because what they are doing is they're presenting you with incompetent, stupid villains who are just throwing themselves onto a buzzsaw. So how am I supposed to find that cool or interesting? I'm not. Any villains this stupid deserve to be defeated. They're not a threat to anyone. So anyhow, Tom says also, you don't need to do strafing runs in space. Yeah, just I think I got that. Did you repeat that one? I think I got that one. Cool. So yeah, so there you have it. So that's Ahsoka off my chest. You know, how's it doing though? How is Ahsoka doing in the ratings? Well, Disney ain't never going to tell us, but fortunately for us, we don't have to rely on Disney. We have something better. We, my dear sailors and star nuts, here on the Swords and Starships channel, please hit like and subscribe. We have an ad blocker. Oh, dang it. 1 second. Delay of game. We have Samba TV. This from Forbes. Ahsoka viewing numbers. Get rid of this advertisement. Ahsoka viewing numbers are well below The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Uh-oh. Well, the numbers are in, and according to third-party analysts, Ahsoka does not seem to be one of Disney's higher-viewed Star Wars projects. According to its premier viewership figures, Samba, the firm that estimates these ratings, because Disney won't give out actual numbers, says that Ahsoka premier viewership is about even with Andor, which nobody watched, which was a far better show, by the way, but well below The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ahsoka got 1.2 million households to watch it in its first 5 days, even with Andor, which featured no major Star Wars characters, only a co-star of Rogue One. Meaning that was about even with Andor. Got it. So Ahsoka, meanwhile, is the live action realization of 11 years of anime. Yes. So we know. These numbers are down 29% from season 3 of The Mandalorian, which had 1.7 million households over the same time period. And they are down 50% from Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, despite not being all that well received at the time, did feature some very big stars, at least. So what's going on? Ahsoka is reviewing well. Fans of the animated series seem to enjoy its realization of those characters on screen. What's the deal? Above all else, I would probably chalk this up to plain old Disney Plus Star Wars fatigue. This is always their answer, these idiots. This is always their answer. When will the lesson be learned? It's just superhero fatigue. Yeah. It's just Star Wars fatigue. People are just tired. They've had their fill of good, delicious, wonderful Star Wars. They're stuffed. They're stuffed to the rafters. They just can't take any more good Star Wars. It feels like we are almost in DC territory lately, where it doesn't really matter if it's good or bad. Audience interest is simply waning. Star Wars was just 3 movies and a lot. Why is this guy not commenting on whether Ahsoka is good? He hasn't seen it. He's like, oh, fans seem to like it. Well, what do you know, sir? Go watch it. You tell me if it's worth your time. Oh, I've got better things to do. You're right. You do. Then we got the prequel trilogy. Then we had Disney buy it, and it went from this sort of mythical thing to a deluge of content. 5 movies, and now this is the 4th major series in as many years, which is a pretty fair point right there. The mystique is sort of gone, even if there are standouts here and there like Andor, which again was not all that widely watched, blah, blah, blah. You know, the mystique is not gone because there's a lot of Star Wars. I just explained earlier in the stream, the mystique is gone because the mystique is being taken out of it by these idiot, feckless writers. The Force is no longer a factor in Jedi training. What? Good. Watch episode 3, the training between Sabine and Ahsoka. She literally does not mention the Force once in their sparring session. And I'm thinking, gee, I wonder why the mystique is gone. When a rebel pilot patrolling, or what I should say, a New Republic pilot is patrolling the galaxy and needs help, where does he go? He goes to the space DMV and listens to a snotty Tim Meadows give him the paperwork runaround. When pirates imperil a planet, that planet is one small town and a houseplant pirate with 1 ship and a lone magistrate who is the only security in the town. And it's a planet at stake, don't you know? It's like, and you want to tell me what the mystique? How about the mystique of the Mandalorians? Oh, the Mandalorians, this is the way. What is the way? Well, the mythosaur. Have you heard of the mythosaur? That's it. No other lore. That's it. Well, there was a mythosaur. What the hell is that? I don't know. Anyway, this is the way. That's it. And you want to tell me that the mystique is gone because there's too many shows? No, the mystique is gone because the mystique is gone. It's not being written into it anymore. Just looking at the show, you know that the budget for this thing is massive. It plays like a blockbuster movie above and beyond what we've seen from The Mandalorian, really from any of these Disney Plus shows so far. The budget has not been released, but it has to be enormous. Disney Plus is about to undergo some cutbacks and reductions in the number of big budget shows it puts out. Is there a point to this, sir? These are not likely putting out the types of numbers that justify their budgets. We know this show is heading toward a big blockbuster crossover with The Mandalorian at some point, but we'll see if the numbers for the series itself can tick up over time if the word of mouth sells it to a wider audience. This guy doesn't give a shit about Star Wars. This is work from home writing right here. Let's phone it in. Paul Tassi over there at Forbes, I don't envy the guy. How are you supposed to muster any intrigue for this series? How are you supposed to find this at all interesting? And I wonder, don't you? Like, how is Disney doing here? This has been an absolute ratings disaster. How about we go with let's do RK Outpost report. Short, sweet, to the point. Hat tip. The angriest man on the internet.
And events and early screenings at Disneyland, and even shifting the premiere time on Disney Plus. Finally, at a normal time, 9 p.m. Eastern, to desperately try to get people to go, oof, because that's the best way to describe it. This is a series that they were hoping could bounce back, could make a difference for them. After all the failures of Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett, Mando Season 3, the paltry audience for Andor that was almost non-existent. They were desperate for Ahsoka to be the thing that brought people back, and it was the opposite. Look at this post from Samba TV. The latest new Star Wars series, Ahsoka, finally hit screens with 1.2 million U.S. households watching over the first 6 days. Now, I'm going to put a lot of these numbers into perspective because Samba TV comes out with a lot of numbers like this, but this is different. Usually we don't hear the first 6 days. Usually we hear the first 4 days. But for some reason, they decided to do that a little differently with Ahsoka, and I think I know why. This is similar to the viewership of Andor's premiere season and slightly lower than Mandalorian's 3rd season premiere over its first 6 days. It's more than slightly lower, just to be clear, because we have a lot of other data. And I even pointed that out in the second part right here. To put this in perspective, this is for the first 4 days of Kenobi, Mando, and Book of Boba Fett. This is a massive failure. So think about that. 1.2 million in the first 6 days. Whereas Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan series from last summer, 2.14 million in the first 4 days. This is effectively half of that viewership. Andor in its first 4 days was estimated around 1 million, maybe less. That sounds like that's what Ahsoka is at too. Same as the failure that Secret Invasion was for Marvel, less than 1 million households, right along those lines. This is what Ahsoka did. All of that fanfare, all of this advertising, and another Disney Star Wars failure. Book of Boba Fett and Mando Season 3 were both massive disappointments too. 1.5 million in the first 4 days for both Book of Boba Fett and for Mando Season 3. We have those numbers too. Again, I remember all this shit because we talk about it, we cover it.
Now, hat tip Ryan Cannell, RK Outpost, the angriest man on the internet. But yeah, 1.2 million. So we literally have Ahsoka with half of the audience that Obi-Wan had. Now, I would argue if you were ever going to have Star Wars as a TV series, as as a kind of competitor to cultural phenomena like Game of Thrones, for example, if you were going to have that succeed, Obi-Wan Kenobi was the kind of series to do that. But what happened was they made a turd. They made an absolute garbage show. It was awful. And it was really the last card they had to play. And the fact that they're kind of trotting out Ahsoka, the Filoni-verse, that's it, folks. After this, there is nothing left. They have scraped everything out of this lore. They have scraped everything out of Star Wars. They've tapped every major character that they have. They're digging into the animated TV series for legacy characters now. And, here's the thing. I can't believe that this is what Filoni is doing with these are his characters. These are your characters, Filoni. Why are you you have these dead actors playing them. You have these lifeless performances. You have Mary Elizabeth Winstead with the crazy eyes. Oh, well, where were you in the war, Senator? I'd like to speak to your manager. I'm a general. Nothing is classified to me. Nothing's classified for a general. Where's your manager? This is like, oh my God. And I'm thinking all he's doing is this is not even an interesting story. He's just revisiting. He's just revisiting what already happened in Star Wars Rebels. As that article put it, it's a live action season 5 of Rebels, and I would argue a dismal one. A dismal one. So Rumble, what's Rumble doing? Okay, cool. Rumble's working. I got a weird message there for a second. All right, cool. So anyhow, I just think that this is pretty much Disney. They're just phoning it in. They're committed and they just have to keep going. And so they just keep throwing stuff at the wall. They just keep throwing stuff at the wall. How much failure do you think they need? How much failure do you think they need before they're like, we need to start taking this franchise that we spent billions of dollars on seriously? All right. But, the good news is, as I've always said, evil has a way of undoing itself. Try this headline. From Bounding into Comics, a group of Disney investors sue the Walt Disney Company, Bob Chapek, Bob Iger, and more for damaging the company for insider trading. A group of investors or shareholders of the Walt Disney Company have filed a lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company, Bob Chapek, Bob Iger, Christine McCarthy, Kareem Daniels, Susan Arnold, and other Disney executives for damaging the company. It's incredible. The Disney company is so allergic to making money, taking responsibility, or being transparent about anything they do that literally it is their investors that are having to force them to take some responsibility for what they're doing. I think it's easy for us as like fans and an audience. I think it's easy for us sometimes to like think of these companies as they just have limitless fortunes. They just make stuff. They just make whatever they want. They do whatever they want. It's easy to forget that they're businesses. These are businesses that people have invested their livelihoods in exchange for the promise that you're going to get a return on your investment. And they're not, they're publicly traded corporations. They're not allowed by law to just go around lying to their investors about things. They're not allowed to be negligent. There's a thing called fiduciary responsibility. You have a fiduciary responsibility to make at least rational business decisions. You cannot simply keep making irrational business decisions with drastic monetary consequences and massive losses and get away with it. And it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible that it's taken this long for them to like reap any of the consequences of their bad decisions. The 63-page claim was filed by Stourbridge Investments, LLC, on behalf of a number of Disney shareholders and the Walt Disney Company. It accuses the Walt Disney Company and its executives of violating the Exchange Act, breaches of fiduciary duty, insider trading, and misappropriation of information, unjust enrichment, and waste of corporate assets. Man, the Disney Company, they must have juice like you can't believe. Like the way they have the whole media lying for them all the time. The way that they, companies like them, I'm sure they were a major player in getting the dislike button removed from public view on YouTube. I mean, the power that they have, it's kind of remarkable that they've gotten away with this stuff for this long. They may still get away with it. Legal analyst Andrew Esquire joined financial and box office analyst Valiant Renegade to break down the lawsuit. Hat tip Valiant Renegade, excellent channel, by the way. He explained, so we've seen the other lawsuits, like the TSG lawsuit, which talks about Disney Plus, which talks about this shift to streaming and their loss of revenue from their breach of contract. But it's that element that is in there within that lawsuit, as well as within the previous pension fund lawsuit, talking about this kind of funny accounting, this kind of Hollywood accounting that's going on with shifting costs from Disney Plus to legacy media. So that is one of the big allegations here. And when they do that, when they make those allegations, they say that this damaged shareholders, he continued. So this is a shareholder lawsuit. It's a little bit different than TSG because TSG was a financier, was a business partner. This is actually shareholders who are actually suing on behalf of the company itself because they're saying, hey, look, you as a board, as the leaders, as the CEO, had a duty to Disney. So they're suing actually technically on behalf of not just the shareholders themselves, but on behalf of the company, saying you have damaged the company by hiding the losses in your public statements, in your press releases, in your earnings calls. He went on, the statements you have made were misleading about Disney Plus, were damaging to us as investors. As investors, we've been harmed by the lies you've been spouting about Disney Plus, specifically about the growth trajectory that you projected it to go to 230 to 260 million subscribers. You actually said it was going to hit profitability by next year, by 2024, and obviously that was a lie. Not only was it a lie, but it was a lie that Chapek knew was a lie, that Disney knew was a lie, the whole board knew was a lie. But they kept parroting this for a long time. While that is the old element from the previous lawsuits, Esquire then detailed what's new in this lawsuit. Quote, now these board members, or rather the higher-ups executives, particularly McCarthy, Kareem Daniels, and Chapek, they're under scrutiny for selling their stock. Ooh, insider trade. You're not allowed to sell the stock if you have insider knowledge that the public and the shareholders do not have that things are going south. But it's looking, dude, do you realize what this was? The rats were fleeing the ships, folks. Chapek knew. He just knew. You know, you remember his hostage video? We value diversity and representation. We are committed to it. Sell my stock. Sell, sell, sell. They're like, diversity is our strength. Sell my stock immediately. He knew. And that's why they're getting sued, because they knew damn well, they knew that they were making bad decisions. Decorum, Captain, decorum. So they sold a significant amount of stock during this period of time in which Disney Plus was booming. Ooh, this is really quite interesting, because this means that they could be in some real trouble here. So before the stock bust, they sold. Well, now there's an allegation in this complaint, in this lawsuit, of insider trading. Could you imagine if they could prove this, that like Chapek and these other executives, Daniels, McCarthy, they knew Disney Plus was a sinking ship. They knew the streaming numbers were bad, but nobody could see them. You know, and the stock was great. Stock is looking really good, but they know what's happening. They know that the Galactic Star Cruiser is a boondoggle nobody wants to go. And they're like, we're going to sell when it's high. And they got caught. Esquire reiterated, this is new. This is something that was not seen before, is that the individuals are being named and saying, hey, Bob Chapek, Christine McCarthy, you guys are insider trading. That's the allegation in the lawsuit. Esquire then shared his opinion that the lawsuit will survive a motion to dismiss. He explained, meaning it's not a frivolous lawsuit. There's certainly enough reasonable basis, right? Which is what we look at as lawyers for the basic bar to pass, to pass the bar and get in court. There's a reasonable basis for these allegations. And frankly, they've submitted a large amount of evidence from their public filings, their proxy statements, and things that are regulated by the SEC. Uh-oh. Okay, I bet over there at Disney, these executives and Bob Iger, I bet you they are working overtime to grease some palms. What do you want to bet that they are having they're whining and dining some SEC guys? They are definitely, I feel like they are, and which is why, I'm not trying to be black pill about this. I'm just saying Disney is a hard target. They have a lot of pull. They have a lot of juice. It ain't going to be easy to take them down. And to be clear, this is a federal lawsuit that is really taking action under various provisions under the Securities and Exchange Act. So these are essentially securities allegations brought by the shareholders that they are violating securities law. This is a serious shot being fired at Disney. And I am here for it. Esquire further broke down the lawsuit in a 2-hour live stream on his Legal Mindset YouTube channel. So hat tip, Esquire, Legal Mindset. As noted by Esquire, this lawsuit comes in the wake of film financier TSG Entertainment suing the company for breach of contract and claiming Disney tried to use nearly every trick in the Hollywood accounting playbook to deprive us out of hundreds of millions. The TSG claim specifically accuses 20th Century Fox Film Corporation and the Walt Disney Company, a breach of contract, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, intentional interference with contractual relations, and inducing breach of contract. Back in May, the Walt Disney Company, Bob Chapek, Christy McCarthy, and Kareem Daniel were sued by Local 272 Labor Management Pension Fund. The lawsuit alleged the defendants were involved in drafting, producing, reviewing, and or disseminating the false and misleading statements and information alleged herein, and were aware of or recklessly disregarded the false and misleading statements being issued regarding the company, and approved or ratified these statements in violation of the federal securities laws. So we're seeing a theme emerge here. And the theme that is emerging is they're being accused of being what they are, which is liars. They are liars. And they're being caught in an ever-increasing preponderance of lies. And it's beginning to have legal consequences. Now, whether or not these lawsuits succeed is a entirely other matter. But see, my point is whether or not these lawsuits succeed or not, the vultures are circling, folks. The vultures are circling. You know, there's blood in the water, and challenge is being invited with Disney now. And the point is, they may win this one. They may take a hit. But the point is, the hits are going to keep coming until they start acting ethically. Until this company starts acting ethically towards its audience, towards its talent and its creatives, towards its investors and shareholders, until they start telling the truth. You know, just like Jordan Peterson, like, tell the truth, man. Like, tell the truth. Like, that's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing. So they need to listen to Jordan Peterson. Dr. Peterson has the solution to their problem. They need to stop lying. So evil has a way of undoing itself. Now, this next one, just take this with a grain of salt. This is purely for fun. I don't think this is probably true, but there is something in this article that kind of interests me, and I wanted to point it out for you. So let me share this. So also from Bounding into Comics, it's a day ending in Y, which means there's another rumor that Kathleen Kennedy is being fired. Well, maybe not being fired, but exiting Lucasfilm. And it's like it ain't gonna happen, folks. It ain't gonna happen. But anyway, the latest rumor, it comes from the same scooper who said there was a possibility she was getting fired like a month ago. But WDW Pro has a source that, you know, he cannot verify this independently, but he is told that Kathleen Kennedy has negotiations still in place for the third week of August, that this August and her contract, as it is constituted, will run out late next year. So in other words, she's not renewing her contract. Which, you know, okay, another rumor she's leaving, big deal. What's the big deal? But this is what I found interesting. So this is from the scooper WDW Pro, and this is what he's claiming that he's heard. Quote, I am told that one of the things that she wants, Kathleen Kennedy, is as a term of her exit, basically, she wants executive producers credits on at least 2 theatrical releases going forward, and she wants actual creative consultation rights. She demands to be on set for 2 future theatrical releases, even after she potentially exits Lucasfilm. She wants to continue to be, you know, on sets. She wants her name to be in the marquee. She wants to go to the premieres, on the dining, and all of that. She wants to try and stick around, even if she's transitioned out of her role. Kathleen Kennedy is the turd that won't flush, folks. Do you think this is true? I think this is true. Not maybe, I don't know. Whether she's exiting or not, she's negotiating that, like, even after I leave, I still get to be an executive producer. I still get to hang out on the set. I still get to I get to be consulted on story decisions. Do you realize what this means? This means that even if it were announced tomorrow that she exits the company, if this were true, it would mean we're still not rid of her. It would mean she still gets to say, now, there's not enough strong female women, and I want you to take out this part where she's in love with a man because that's gross, and make it that she has a lesbian haircut and she's scissoring with one of the other strong female women. And this plot, I don't like this plot. I think it should be that the captain of the ship is a stupid dum-dum head, and he invites the evil Jedi onto the ship, and people will love it. Now, in a new scoop, WDW Pro states, for the first time ever in the last few months, I'm hearing that Kathleen Kennedy will be departing. Now, we have some dates that we believe are likely to be those windows in which she will announce her retirement. Why would she? I just, is she actually... She's very comfortable with being a complete perennial failure. Like, she has no issue with that. So I don't even understand. Why would you even leave? I'm inclined not to believe this rumor. But he said one potential time frame is mid to late October. She would make an announcement, but she wouldn't leave until she'd serve out her contract, which ends next year in Q3. Okay, cool. Believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. Captain will believe it when I see it. I just find it interesting. The part of that I found interesting was that she's saying, like, I still want to hang out on the set. I still get to be credited on at least 2 theatrical movies. And I just think, that's the part of it that rings true to me. I think that the ego of these people has got to be astronomical. They just want, like, they're there for the party. These are not artists. These are fake, phony people that think that they're creatives. They think that they are artists, and they're not. They're just there for the parties. They're there for the political clout. They're there to eat bonbons. They're there to have their name in the credits, to hang out and hobnob with the actors on set. This is why. So just bring it all home here. Why are we getting what we're getting? This is why. Because we have people that do not care about these characters. They don't care about the story. They don't care about good storytelling. They don't care. While lecturing us about politics, they actually don't understand the politics of the Star Wars world, or at least they're incapable of presenting interesting and compelling politics on screen. It's why we've gotten to the place that we're in. It truly is. So anyhow, but there is good stuff. There is good stuff to be excited about. There's good stuff to watch. I'm still watching Twisted Metal on Peacock, and I have got to say, it's really interesting because there's an episode. I just watched an episode where John Doe and Quiet, the 2 characters, they're kind of on this sort of buddy road trip at this point, going across the post-apocalyptic wasteland of Twisted Metal. And this is based on the Twisted Metal video game series, in which you get in souped up cars with weapons and rockets and you fight each other on the road. I do think this show could benefit from a little bit more of the actual Road Warrior, like cars fighting each other stuff. I actually think that's some of the best action in the show. And I feel like it's a bit thin on that at times. However, what this show does really well is tongue-in-cheek comedy. So kind of dark comedy that does not undermine the tension in the story, because there's definitely real stakes in the story. The bad guys really are bad. And even though they kind of do some things that are idiotic, they also do some things that are smart and clever. Like, for example, the big bad in the show is Agent Stone, who is he's masquerading as a kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland cop, but he's all ego. He's doing it. He's basically the personification of the big ego cop with the mirror sunglasses, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who is great as this character. And he's played as basically a guy who is arrogant and very blinded by his arrogance. But the thing about it is, even though he kind of does dumb things because of his ego, but he's not an idiot. And that's like one of the really important parts of his character. There's an actual menace with him because he's actually pretty effective at what he does. He's actually pretty good at being a ruthless fascistic cop. That's basically what it is. And you know what's interesting about it too is that a lot of this world, I mean, there's a lot of awful people in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. So I get the sense when I watch this character that it would actually there's kind of there's a little bit, not a lot, but there's a little bit of sympathy I feel like you can have for this character on the part of the audience. Like, if he weren't such a dick, he actually might be a force for good in this world. Even if he were doing a lot of bad things, you know, at least he's taking out a lot of the trash. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's that angle with his character of like, well, he's one more animal and he attacks the other animals. But no, he's pretty ruthless. But the fact is, he's lethal, he's dangerous, he's competent. He does make mistakes, and those mistakes are character-driven mistakes that are well established in his personality and his backstory. But he doesn't make obvious, stupid blunders that are out of character for him. And I think that's a key difference between what I'm watching with these Marvel shows and these Star Wars shows. And the other thing that's interesting about the show is they're able to do, I know, I act as though this is novel or something. I've just been watching so much Drek that, like, when I see an episode where the characters are just talking and it's interesting and there's tension, it's like, wow, yeah, that's what good writing can do. So John Doe and Quiet have this kind of very reluctant romance that is just very slowly building by piece as the show progresses. And a lot of it is because these, you know, she just doesn't trust people. She has a very thick skin, a very thick exterior, and so she's very slow to trust people. And so that's kind of why this romance is slowly but surely building. But John has just pulled her ass out of the fire, and they get there's this thing called a, what did they call it? A Watson storm. A Watson storm. So in this post-apocalyptic world, a nuclear plant blew up during the fall, and it poisoned the atmosphere. And so now they're basically like rad storms from Fallout. So basically there is this Watson storm that's happening, and they are stuck in. Did they basically just copy Fallout 4? They basically copied Fallout 4. Anyway, there is a Watson storm that is keeping them holed up in this old fast food restaurant. And so it's kind of like what that guy in that article I was reading, it's like, it's kind of like a bottle ship episode. Well, this is actually kind of like a bottle ship episode because they're stuck in this restaurant. And what's interesting, there's a couple of things I would note about this. They have a conversation where all they're doing is talking about their backstory, right? They're just talking about like some of their favorite things. And I noticed that, you know, it's very similar to a situation in Ahsoka where it's like two characters just talking about their history. But what's interesting, and so I was particularly in tune to this, but what I found interesting about it is the tension in the conversation is coming from the fact that, A, there's some things about these characters we really don't know and we would like the answers to. B, there's the romantic tension. We sense that these characters are starting to like each other and we're wondering if they're going to take the plunge. And then C, it builds towards something actually happening. So the fact that they're connecting in this way leads to a romantic episode, which sets up what later happens in the episode, which is a falling out. And that, in turn, sets up another payoff, which is them kind of actually working it out and coming back together. And the point is, what is achieved in the arc of this episode is these two characters actually start a romance with each other, which is a big thing because we've seen these two characters not willing to trust other people for like 4 episodes. And I'm thinking, this is the issue with these are actually writers that can write dialogue in the show Twisted Metal. So I highly recommend it. I highly recommend the show if you need a palate cleanser. It's a post-apocalyptic show that does not take itself too seriously. I want to see it. Could I find this dialogue? It would be cool if I could find it. Let's see. Twisted Metal. This would be quite the Hail Mary. In the... Quite the Hail Mary. Dude, Sweet Tooth is so good in this show. I just love how they do Sweet Tooth. Like, okay, so here's one of the things. This is one of the mistakes. Anyway, check it out. It's the episode's called Drive Through. It's a great episode. There's a lot of dialogues, but like they're using the environment, the setting. They actually have a way of having, nuance and subtext. It's great. But Sweet Tooth, who is the killer crazy clown in this show, he has one of the mistakes that they make in some of these tongue-in-cheek type dark comedies is that they make the characters that are supposed to be crazy and unpredictable, the sort of chaotic evil, they start to make them just too likable, too endearing. And then they form friendships with one or two of the characters, and you start to think, oh, they're actually a good guy. And what I don't like about that is that it ignores the fact that this is a dangerous crazy, right? So, anyhow, what's really great in Twisted Metal is that Sweet Tooth, the menace of this character, never goes away. Like he's always just when you start to think he's a bit disarming and he's kind of like a misunderstood good guy, and when he's on your side, oh, he's crazy, but he's crazy. But then he'll do something that's so terrifying that you're like, you are in real danger if ever you are in this character's presence. You are always, doesn't matter who you are in danger if you are in this character's presence. But he's also hilarious and incredibly fun to watch. And it's great to watch him just take out the bad guys. Anyhow, Twisted Metal. There are good things out there. Hey, would you like to share in some internet drama? Maybe we'll say, you know what? I think we got pretty much through the stack of stuff. I will save that for the next stream. We'll talk about that. So I think we're going to make it a short Captain's Cast today. Going to wrap this one up. But in any case, my dear sailors and starnuts, this is the Captain's Cast. I am your host, Captain Garrett, on the Swords and Starships channel. Please do like and subscribe. Fu Man Blue says, WTF, I just got home. Fu Man Blue, what happened? No, I'm just kidding. No. All right. Well, if the chat wants, all right. One more. How about one more story before we wrap it up? That's the internet drama. We'll do some internet drama. I live to serve the audience. Fu Man Blue says, a story. A story? What kind of story, Fu Man Blue? I do. You like a news story, or just like want me to just make up a story? It's story time, folks. Oh yes, gotcha. I did say a story. A news story. Okay, this is a SG-1. Yeah, we could talk about. I haven't finished. I'm still in the middle of an SG-1 episode where they're stuck in a prison colony, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so. Should I do the article first? Let's do the article first. And then we'll talk about the origin of this. Okay, so if you don't know, I'm a great fan of Nerdrotic. Well, Nerdrotic ruffled some feathers. I love, the wokies. It's so funny. Like you can never predict when they're going to wake up and decide you're the public enemy number one. So here we go. Try this headline. Let me see if I can do dark mode, because this is killing me. This is just, my God. Dark mode enable. There we go. Oh, thank God. This from, what the hell is this website? Film? The dark mode must be blocking it here. Hang on. Proper attribution. This is from Remezcla. I can only guess this is a Latinx website. It's pronounced Latinx. And I don't want to hear any Latino bigots arguing with me on that. Now, this from the Blue Beetle video review gets dragged for racist criticisms. Here's what happened by Kiko Martinez. I tend to think when people like this write this, they're just looking for a click headline. I don't actually think they're all that invested in the culture war, but here we go. The folks at a pop culture YouTube channel are receiving some major backlash for a racist review they posted recently about the latest DC comic superhero movie, Blue Beetle. In the video, which is titled, "Let's Talk About Blue Beetle." So Gary over at Nerdrotic, his editor, he decided to just make the title of the video, "Let's Talk About Blue Beetle." And that tuned up the Wokies. That tuned them up a little. Oh man. Hold the phone. Fu Man Blue with a $10 super chat. Fu Man Blue, you're too generous, sir. You're too generous. I just want to talk about SG1. All right. Well, you have earned some SG1 talk. I will. Star Fury in the chat. Hail, Star Fury. Evening. Welcome aboard. Captain salute to Fu Man Blue. Thank you for that super chat. And Star Fury, thanks for popping in. Got the whole posse here now. The captain has just discovered the controls in the helm that allow me to highlight super chats. So I am now having fun with this new power. I've leveled up. I've unlocked the Fallout perk where I can now highlight super chats, which gives me +2 to charisma. Talk about being late, says Star Fury. Excellent. How many more can I highlight? I'll highlight this one, and I'll highlight this one, and I'll highlight this one. Anyhow, okay, that's enough. Decorum, Captain. Decorum. So anyway, so the Wokies are all tuned up. I'm studying the species, folks, okay? This is for science. This is really weird, too. He spells Latine, Latine. Is this a way to spell it? It's spelled Latinx, first of all. But I have not seen this spelled Latine. Latine, created by LGBTQIA plus LMNOP, up, down, left, right, press, pause, Spanish speakers, uses the letter E to illustrate gender inclusivity within existing Spanish pronunciation. No, this is what this is. Oh, this is what this is. So they don't like Latinx. They don't like that. So let's try Latine. No, sir, you bigot. It's pronounced Latinx. You bigoted jerk. So this is hilarious. Okay, so anyway, a group of contributors at the Nerdrotic Daily discussed the Latine aspects of the movie that they didn't like. And it, again, straw man argument. At no point did they say they did not like the Latinx aspects of the movie. But this is what they do. They attribute arguments to people they don't like. This is what Wokies do. They never argue with actual arguments. Because frankly, their ideas are stupid. They're weak. The facts never support their claims. So they have very weak arguments, which is A, why they favor censorship, and B, why they love arguing with points that their perceived enemies never made. So this would be a perfect example of that. But he's like, oh, they didn't like that they didn't like there were Latinos in it. One of them, who called himself 1/4 Black Garrett, asks his cohorts why movies featuring Latinx characters have to include Latinx so many cultural elements. So they're so pissed about this. And then they posted a bunch of angry TikTok videos. This is just, all this is one of these Wokies found this. Oh my God. Oh, this is so evil. This is so racist. We have officially reached peak first world problems. We don't have enough occupying our minds. I think Elon Musk has said one of the reasons he wants to get us to space is that human beings, we need frontiers. We need causes is the wrong word. We need reasons to explore and to reach for the future. We need a kind of story to tell ourselves about where we're going, and that we've lost that. You know, everything that can be explored has been explored. And so Elon Musk's theory is that we need space in order to give us forward motion as a culture, or otherwise we're going to stagnate and rot. And I tend to think he's right about this. I tend to think that this is accurate. I think what has happened is we won. We won. We beat racism in this. I mean, let's just to put things in perspective. You know, slavery as a legal system abolished, segregation as an evil system abolished. Generally, society has become tolerant and accepting. You know, women have all the same rights as men, property rights, voting rights, all of that fixed. You know, gay, lesbian, bisexual people basically are accepted. They're no longer living in fear of death or even being fired from their jobs anymore. Quite the opposite. Now they're the ones that are the shot callers deciding who gets fired for not using my pronouns, which is quite the disgusting reversal because it is just the worst crime of someone who is oppressed to then turn around and become the oppressor. But that is neither here nor there. But my point is we live in a society that has basically become that longs for this to be over. Case in point, the election of one Barack Obama. That was absolutely the country saying, can we please officially declare this over? Can we declare a farewell to arms? Can we finally say this is over? We don't. Nobody, yes, is there still problems? Is there still unfair things going on in society? Of course, nobody's denying that. Nobody's denying that. But can we agree that we're now on the same side? All of us. We're all on the same side now. Nobody's, you know, the holdouts are out, you know, in some shack up in the foothills somewhere. They may still be holdouts. Fine. We admit that. They no longer run anything. We as a society have decided we're okay with people just basically living their best life, skin color, who they love, whatever. We're fine with it. Can we just move on with life and be happy? Well, it turns out that, as Agent Smith pointed out in The Matrix, your primitive cerebrum kept rejecting the program. Whole crops were lost. It was a disaster. You know, this is absolutely what has happened, is that we have had too much time on our society, too much time on our hands, and there is simply not enough things to bitch about. And so we have to bitch about, let's talk about Blue Beetle. So we have Aditya Charausia. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that. Big fan, bro. You gay? So much nonsense talk. Hater in the chat. Well, you're welcome anyway, Aditya. I'll tell you what I am. I am the captain of this ship. The captain runs a tight ship. But you are permitted, sir. The captain will allow it. Pull up a chair. We're actually talking about a great subject of great interest to you. Barack Obama, the first gay president. Yeah, you know, Bill Clinton was the first black president. Thank you very much. But in any case, so yes, they're very unhappy. They're very unhappy about. Now, what is it they're unhappy about? Well, I'm going to do something the author of this article did not do. I'm actually going to play the video.
Anytime there's a Hispanic or black character in a movie or a show, it is completely centered around that culture, and there's no other aspect of anything else. It's like, okay, he happens to be Hispanic. Does every single aspect of his life have to be tacos? Yes. Literally in the beginning, he's getting back from college. They're like, let's go get tacos. And then they walk into their house, and she's like, that's where Mama told us how to make salsa.
Isn't the guy?
Isn't
the name of his?
The name of his truck is Taco.
It's the taco.
It is.
How much you pay for that taco?
Hey, yo, you know this, boy. He's got his free taco.
Nerdrotic.com
And I don't know if we want to put up spoilers, but I can share them because they're pretty darn
Spoilers?
hilarious.
Nobody cares.
Nobody
cares.
Just chat. If you've seen a superhero movie before, then there's no spoilers. They just take pieces of other superhero
If you've
movies.
seen
So.
Shaquille O'Neal in Steel, you've seen this film.
Pretty much.
I do think there's some stuff that, hey, I love the fact that they made a family-centered movie.
I enjoyed
how
that as well.
important family
That's
was
true.
and how they stuck together. Like, I think that was a great aspect of this. One of the few great aspects of the movie that it was really centered on family. I like the fact that there was a.
Now, Adia, since you're very upset, about how the captain is not doing, as you put it, real work, I'm going to do some real work, sir. I'm going to educate you. Pull up a chair. You're welcome in this chat. I want you here. I want you here to see this because I guarantee, based on what you're saying, you're probably one of these people that looks at a headline, that looks at a tagline, and you immediately form an opinion of what your perceived political enemies that you think that they're saying. And then you feel entitled to then go and destroy those people. Well, if that's you, you need to watch this, sir, because if you were just seeing this, what were they just talking about? They're saying one of the great elements of this film, and I agree, is actually that the family dynamic, the family unit, they're a tight-knit group. They love each other. They take care of each other. They're complementing that aspect of the film. So what is the purpose of the "Let's Talk About It" headline? It is making fun of what? It's making fun of the stereotypical racial attitudes of the film. That is mocking, that is treating these characters as if this is the most important part of their story. So they're actually, so I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult for you to accept other opinions, to accept that there might be people in the world who just simply don't like a movie because of how it was presented without it being racism. That might be difficult for you. But let's, we're educated.
Love interest, and it wasn't like she was shutting him down or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that. That's kind of back to traditional, some storytelling that we don't fucking get, but it just is not enough to make up for a lot of the big problems.
Oh, exactly. Like, because I enjoyed the family aspect too.
What
The
evil
problem is I
racists
found
these
the
are.
families so
What absolute
bloody and
bigots.
annoying.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just like, come on. And that uncle, like, when they take the truck and he like passes out, I'm just like, am I watching like a cartoon? This is ridiculous in the extreme. They're all caricatures.
At the end, the uncle got blown up and then was fine.
Yeah.
Well, you never really saw it. You just saw that everything
ran
collapsed.
away.
No,
It
that's
was-
true,
he
Ryan.
ran
We
away,
did
yeah.
see the missile going that far away from him,
saw him go, oh, shit.
exploding, causing an unbelievable amount of devastation. And then 2 minutes later,
We're tough
he's holding
people.
You
That's what
tough
we
people.
do.
No,
Yeah.
Mexicans are sneaky, dude. Come on.
Survive because of racism.
Also, I'm not sure
It's a joke. It's a joke.
how much credit I want to give him for the whole family.
Enhance
stuff
your
and
comms.
Neither do I.
stuff.
Yeah.
They're very self-aware of that. They knew going into this, like, this is going to be celebrated for
You
its
guys-
family
you
message.
guys are
And what do they have
destroying
to
our
show for
beloved
it other than,
American-
like,
Guys,
family's
what are
good.
you
I like
talking
family.
about, bro?
And then they had the fucking stupid Carapax guy being like, your weakness is liking family.
You're wrong.
Crap.
If we're picking worst things of the movie, Susan Sarandon for me was the absolute worst actor in the entire thing. She phoned that thing in so hard.
Dude, how much absolute destruction of America are you hearing in this movie review, sir? Like, for real, bro. Like, yeah, I mean, listen, go get a real job. Like, you're the one that's sitting on my YouTube channel, and you're pissed that the America's being destroyed by a movie review. It's a freaking opinion, sir. It's an opinion. Like, dude, lighten up. Chill, bro. Nobody, just chill. Life is beautiful, man. It is actually, I would argue, it's this conversation. And by the way, you're welcome in the chat, being kind of a jerk, not going to lie, but you're welcome even so, because I think what the problem we have is this divide right here. It's you and I not being able to have a conversation. That's what's destroying America. If you want to talk about what's destroying America, having opinions about movies is not. How about this? Lying about the success and failure of movies. Is that destroying America? Is it, sir? I'm just asking questions. You know, why protect these film companies, these corporations that are, look at what they're doing. They're taking what they perceive as the cultural memes of a Mexican American family, and they are turning them into stereotypes of themselves. And then they are demanding that any criticism of this film is motivated by racism. That's a lie. That's a lie. It's malicious. And that is what I would argue is tearing up America. People having opinions about movies. I don't care. Look, dude, if anyone thought this movie was brilliant, it was great, it was a triumph, it deserves 5 Academy Awards, I got no issue with that. I got no issue with that. So anyhow, let's get now. And I appreciate you're still here, because if you're here, you're actually hearing what they really said about the movie. Now, listen. They're trolls. Ryan is a troll, the angriest man on the internet. He is a troll. Look, in all seriousness, they have been, all the guys on this panel, but especially like Ryan, Gary, you could not possibly affect them with the word racism. You couldn't do it, because it's all they're called every single day. That word has no meaning. It has no meaning anymore. The word fascism has no meaning in our society anymore. It doesn't describe anything. You know what it describes? It describes something that someone else doesn't like. But I'm going to tell you something. Those words used to mean something. They used to mean something serious. They used to mean something horrific. They used to mean something that was for our society to avoid. What is fascism? Fascism is an ideology which advocates that all of society should be organized for military dictatorship, that every level of society should be mobilized for conquest, that all information should be controlled, censored, and that all art should be propaganda in service of the state. By the way, that's basically pretty much the exact same thing as communism, just with a slightly different obsession, right? The fascism is usually more obsessed with racial groups, whereas communism is much more obsessed with economic groups. But they basically operate under the same idea. So what the guys on this panel, like them or not, you're totally entitled to think they're assholes. No issue with that. But what they are arguing is that we, as fans of Star Wars, as fans of Marvel, as fans of these superhero films, we are on the side of art. We are on the side of the characters. We want these characters to be created faithfully. We want to go to the theater and be delighted and entertained. We want to enjoy things. But what are we subjected to? We are subjected to propaganda, which is being in service of the state. And some of it is frankly offensive. And if you are a Latino, you should be offended, I think, by a corporation trotting out a film like this, pandering to stereotypes, and then saying, well, you're supposed to like it because you're Latino, aren't you? That's what they're making fun of here. When they say, let's talk about this, they're making fun of corporate assholes who are trying to pander based on racial stereotypes, which some people consider despicable.
Dude. She was basically playing Hillary Clinton.
She was.
Evil, yes.
Except
I do
she
agree
likes
with
Hillary
that.
Clinton.
I do agree
But
with
yeah, no, the Jenny Cord, the actress played Jenny Cord. She was terrible. She was freaking awful.
She
Right
was
under
also
that, yes.
Brazilian, and I couldn't tell if they were trying to have her have an accent or not.
My dad was never able to unlock the Scarab, so instead he built his own tech.
I didn't think it was the worst movie I'd ever seen. It was very mid, if anything. Everything was as cookie cutter as you could possibly think. Even the cultural stuff was like checking every single Hispanic box.
Well, you know, Aditya, I talk too much. Well, this is the captain's cast. The captain talks precisely as much as the captain is required to talk. So you are welcome aboard, sir. But on this ship, the captain has his say. So I'm sorry if that not sorry is what I'm trying to say. But I'm actually letting Nerdrotic have his say.
Thought it was great. Where
Friday
he
Night
had the
Tights.
one sword, and then he had the other sword, and then she went, you can create anything. He went, oh, let's make one sword out of the.
Wait. There was a bigger sword.
It was a little,
And it was,
yeah.
It was like
Cloud's. It was Cloud's sword, right?
It was the
Yes.
Buster sword.
Yeah, it looked like
That's the ultimate
I
cosplay.
don't mind like somebody like that who's like they didn't show him ever playing video games or anything. I guess that's one of the problems, right?
Yeah.
Like if they had showed
Yeah,
that he
the
was like a
Xbox
gamer or whatever.
controller on his
yeah.
side table.
Yeah, exactly. Right next to the salsa.
That's all you need.
If they had
Right
shown
next to the
that
hot
would have made a
sauce.
little more sense, but I could
Oh.
believe that like a
Right
23-year-old kid would make something like that.
Yeah.
That was I get it. It was cool for the moment.
right on.
I have to say, Ryan is actually, he tends to get the reputation for being the biggest hater on these movies unfairly. But the interesting thing here is he actually was defending this movie a lot more than I would. I thought Blue Beetle was garbage. It was absolute garbage. Am I talking too much for you, Aditya? Am I? Blue Beetle is a garbage movie, and I'll tell you why. Because the suit had a weird emasculating relationship with Jaime that was bizarre. But the thing that really was a missed opportunity is that if they had just made the film about Jaime, his love story with Jenny, his father, I loved the father-son dynamic. I thought that was a beautiful part of the film. If his father had just simply been his Uncle Ben, and then you could have Rudy along for the ride as kind of a comic relief sideshow, and then ditch this obsession with stuffing every minute of the film with some kind of grievance trope, and just let them be a family. Let him just be, and give him an agency in the plot. It could have been a good story, because the problem with this story is Jaime had the least agency of any character in this film. The suit, he never learns anything. He never goes on a journey. He never learns how to use his powers. And the most important failing of the film is he has no central moral ethic as a superhero. He has no, Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. With Batman, it's like he's got to clean up the city to avenge the death of his parents. What was that for Jaime? They totally dropped the ball on that. And what I am arguing, whether you want to hear this or not, is I am arguing on your behalf. I'm saying you as an audience member of these films deserve better. You deserve better, sir.
I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on Blue Beetle. Most of which, was just the unnecessary, gratuitous racism, and I'm like, either these people have never worked in corporate America, or they're willingly just trying to make a point on purpose. Like a really good example is when, and I'm going to say Miguel from Cobra Kai, because I just keep forgetting his real name.
Yeah.
Cobra Kai guy, very likable, basically carries the whole film. There was a moment where he's in a jacket and a tie, and he's going in for his interview. He's going in basically to meet Jenny Cord at the big fancy Cord building. And the receptionist looks at this guy with his hair, his hair combed, jacket and tie, and goes, deliveries are downstairs, which would never fucking happen. I've been a receptionist like basically every job I've ever had. You would never say that. It's just like intentionally racist. Like, oh, because this guy is tan, and has no deliveries. Clearly he's here for deliveries. It was really kind of unbelievable the way they would sort of force the racism in.
Right.
And I agree with somebody else said it before. His family fucking sucks. Even when they're dropping him off for like the biggest interview of his life, they're fucking honking the taco horn. They're yelling, they're screaming, and everybody's like buttoned up, and it's perfect.
The name of the truck is the Taco, by the way. But there's another thing too. In that scene where he goes up to the reception desk, he literally says, "Oh, my name's Jaime. I'm here to see Jenny Cord." And he's like, "Oh, Jamie? Okay, cool." He's like, No. It's pronounced Jaime because it's spelled Jaime. That's how the name is spelled, right? So the idea is that if she had read it on a paper and said, "Oh, is it Jamie?" Then he's like, "No, it's Jaime." The J is, it's a ha sound, right? That would at least be in alignment with the stupid, unnecessarily racialized point they were trying to make in the film. But as it is, it's asinine because he's saying audibly that his name is Jaime, but because the movie just needs to have the narrative that white people are racist all the time, which is itself a kind of racist attitude, quite frankly, but because the film needs it to be that the white person is racist towards a Latino for basically no reason in the context of the scene, she's going to say, oh, it's pronounced Jamie. And then he says, no, it's Jaime for the second time. And she says, okay, Jamie, you're going to go down. It's like, this would never happen. So this is, and if you notice, this is actually the critique that, well, I mean, look, take off whenever you want, bro. This is the captain's cast. Permission to disembark is never required, sir. You are welcome to disembark at any time you please. I will not stop you. But if you're willing to sit around, maybe you might learn something. You might actually learn what people actually are saying about the film, because in my view, this is advocacy. This is advocacy for good filmmaking and good art, which is something that we need to save our beloved America. So there we go. Let us resume. Let us resume.
And it's like, this is just like, I'm like,
telling him that they're all scum. The people in the
Yeah.
company are all scum.
yeah,
And
I
shit.
mean, George Lopez, in my opinion, had
Who made me captain, Aditla? You know, if I were Jeremy from D-Day Cobra, I'd probably say your mom made me captain, but I would never say that. That would be vulgar and beneath the decorum of an officer. I became a captain through many difficult years of toiling in the ranks. I earned every promotion. I earned it by showing leadership, duty, and professionalism, sir, both in my craft and in my life. And that is why I am the captain, and you are a swabby swabbing the decks. So I'm sorry if my rank is intimidating, but listen, if you work hard, you might get a better role on the ship. You might, but the captain would need to see a slightly more. I need to see a little better seamanship from you. And I don't mean that in the LGBTQIA way.
some of the most like cringy racist lines in the whole movie. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because of how it was written or because George Lopez is a comedian and he kind of was like,
Have you
know,
ever
he
watched
brought-
the George Lopez show?
No.
Yes.
I don't know if that's because he brought a little something extra to it, but like the whole Batman is a fascist.
Yeah.
Like he said a lot of dumb things, and like we learn out of absolutely nowhere that he's this technical genius. Like we're supposed to just be like, oh, of course he's a tech genius. Like, isn't every Hispanic uncle a tech genius? Here's the thing: is they threw everything possible to make you care for this family. And I'm somebody who it doesn't take very much for me to cry at movies. Like if you hit all those buttons, like I'm gonna cry. Like I can't control it. And it's like the dad had cardiac arrest.
Girl.
The dad died. The house was they did a Hawaiian forest fire on the house, aka they firebombed it. They did an abduction. They did a death. They did everything possible, and I think it was too much that they did to make us feel for this family. Oh, they're brown, so they're perpetual victoms.
They just want to push us out of our neighborhood, the rich people.
They're like, oh, we're losing the house. I was like, hold the phone. There's what? How many working age adults in this family, and y'all can't make rent?
Right.
I'm like, we're brown. We're
Maybe
victims. I'm
stop
like,
feeding the daughter. Maybe stop feeding her.
But the rich people save the day at the end. The rich person just solves all of their problems.
True.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
The day at the end. The rich person just solves all of their problems.
True.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Mahler's point is brilliant there. He's like, basically the whole point of the film is they're hating rich people. The whole movie, what happens at the end? The rich person saves them.
Brazilian comes in.
Try not to have a taco. I'm sorry, your truck that has about $10,000 of add-ons on a $2,000 truck. That's just a thought.
Yeah, I saw a lot of similarities between like the Tony Stark tech that he gave to Peter Parker. The voice talking in the suit again reminded me of the personality inside the Iron Man suit. And the similarity of like, oh, Spider-Man doesn't kill, Blue Beetle doesn't kill,
but everybody else does.
I would give it like a B-, C+, because obviously it's like, you know, I'm more of a normie watching this. I'm like, all right, it's nice to look at, but the subtle but ever-present racism is something I couldn't ignore.
almost every scene, I was like, I've seen this. You copied it from thingy. You copied it from that. Copied it. Anyone notice like when Peter's practicing in Raimi Spider-Man 1, trying to get his webs to work? It's the exact same scene when he's like, I'm trying to get my thrusters to work. Can't do it. What's going on? There must be something. I was just like, yeah, I've seen that. The fact that it's like a teenager's understanding of how to approach the problem of killing in a superhero movie. It's like, I shouldn't do it because I just shouldn't. And then later he's like, but now I want to because you hurt my dad. To me, it's just like you managed to understand the idea. You could have done it a little more interestingly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've heard some praise for the family and like his dad, Uncle Bendejo, I don't know.
I have no idea what
Pendejo. Doesn't that mean asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah. Always asshole.
Pendejo.
I didn't give a fuck.
Asshole.
When he came in because the whole family were about to be shot, I was like, this would be so fucking cool if they all just got minced by the minigun. Do it, have the balls. You're like, no. Then I was like, the dad's gonna fucking have a heart attack and then he's gonna die and he's gonna be like, you killed my papa. And I was just like, this is so fucking boring, get on with it. And then they actually had the I think it's fair
No,
to
the
reference,
vaccine killed your dad.
it's fair to reference Black Panther, but like I said, to me it was just Iron Man versus Ironmonger at the end. That's all that was.
Yep.
If they had done a little bit more instead of just constantly making fucking taco references with the family and had them instill some sort of morality in terms of, we turn the other cheek, we don't fight back, like something like that, and the family also exhibited those traits, then maybe you could understand why Jaime felt that way.
Yeah.
And like the very much, I don't want to hurt people, I don't want to kill, or I don't want to kill people kind of thing. But they obviously didn't give a fuck. They went on a murdering spree.
That would take talent and skill and creativity to do that. This was just checking those boxes of family, love each other.
Good.
Just like that's it. Like there's no connective tissue there.
And
that's such an excellent point that Ryan makes. I joke about the fact that he's the angriest man on the internet, but you notice he's making a very sober point there. There's nothing you could reproach. He's basically saying, like, look, there was a lot of opportunities in this film. If the family, and I exactly agree with this. It's most of the family should have been kind of supporting characters, but the father should have been the character in the film, and he almost was. That was instilling in Jaime the ethic that later becomes both his mission as a superhero and his ethic as a superhero. Why doesn't he kill people? The film couldn't even figure out what the hell its philosophy was, because the main character, Jaime, says, I don't kill people. Every other member of his family laughs hilariously as they just gun down, step on, mow down every goon they come in contact with. So these are not bigoted critiques. These are critiques, sir. Why am I the captain? Because I understand this, Aditya, and you don't. That's why I'm the captain. Because they are making critiques about the content of the film. Now, I have no understanding. This is what I think. I think that corporations are manipulating us into hating each other over just our opinions. They are manipulating us into hating each other because we disagree on a film. There's not, if you love Blue Beetle, more power to you. Enjoy. But I'm telling you, there are objective problems with the story structure in the film, with the I don't even know if you even care about the film or if you've seen it. I'm just assuming because you seem to have a real dog in this hunt, But anyhow, but what do I know? But if we can't have, notice who benefits when we're at each other's throats all the time. Who benefits from this? Well, the corporations that are lying about their streaming numbers, that are underpaying all of their writers, actors, and talents, that are forcing all of their political messages into films, whether we want them or not, whether it's good storytelling or not, that are lying to their investors and shareholders about how much money that they're taking in. Who's benefiting? They benefit because they have basically the reviewers, the shield media. They are all on the payroll. They are bought and paid for. Because we're too busy pointing fingers at each other about, oh, well, you just don't like that this movie has Latinx people in it. And it's like, no, it's not that we don't like. It's like, oh, yes, you do. And meanwhile, The fox is in the henhouse. Who benefits from that? Not you and me. Not you and me, sir.
It's so funny to watch.
By the way, hat tip Nerdrotic. Nerdrotic Daily. I believe this is his Nerdrotic Daily channel. For the full video, it is linked in the description, and it is called "Let's Talk About Blue Beetle."
Copy these films and forget like a whole bunch of the details, because him sparing Carapax leads to like a lot of death and destruction, but that's never acknowledged. That's like the interesting question. It's what Spider-Man deals with in almost all the fucking movies, but this movie's like, I'm like Spider-Man, we don't kill, and then we think about it, but then we don't. All the funniest shit for me was completely like supposed to be taken seriously, I think, and that's why I was having so much fun. Like watching Susan Sarandon get dragged off into a fire pit, and he was just like, "Should I do something?" Nah.
The only joke I laughed at is when, sorry, spoilers, when the Scarab gets into his body. He's all, "How to get in there?" He's all, "It went up your culo."
Yeah. It didn't go up my ass. It didn't.
Everyone's talking about, oh, I gave this. I love the family aspect. I went to see this movie with my dad, and I'm not joking. The first thing he said to me after we came out is, "I couldn't stand that family." So it's like, clearly, it doesn't, not all around the world.
I like the fact that they try to incorporate these family values and this family sticking together and all that shit. The terrible part was the family themselves are annoying characters.
Yeah. And they're there all the time. I wanted to see the main character do stuff.
This is the type of film that is like, it felt like it was real. The story was written for a really low budget film, but was given a really high budget.
It was meant to be on HBO Max first.
There are some really low grade superhero movies that end up on, I don't know, some streaming service and stuff like that. Like Sky High, there's one. I actually think Sky High is an arguably better film than this, but it's got corny things in it, and the writing was so nonsense and stupid that it really felt like it was one of those low-grade films, but it was just throwing a massive budget.
When he fucks around with it after being told not to, and he starts transforming with the suit, that was where like the tone for the film just completely fucked me, because I was watching him screaming in agony. It looks like it's melting, and he's just crippled himself onto the ceiling. The whole family are like, "Oh no!"
He flies out of the ceiling, and then they're repairing the table
while he's
gone. The police. Rob, they don't know where he is. Well, and they're just like, "Oh, let's fix our table because that's more important."
They can't.
Well,
call
so
weird.
They were on the phone with the cop. I don't know what I was supposed to do, but the
he grew things out of his back and flew up.
Hey, Policia,
Muller's 100% on though, because it is like it shifts to this almost like horrific feeling of this, and it's just George Lopez high pitched screaming, and it's like slapstick comedy bullshit, and it's like it does not match the tone at all.
That was he said that scene took multiple days to film. So they really tried for that one.
Wow,
Really
that's the best they got.
For people who want to turn their brain off and just watch fun, flashy lights, everything like that, I think this film has an even greater failing, and it's that it's a really lame superhero story. He doesn't go on a superhero arc. He doesn't really learn or achieve anything. In fact, this is probably the biggest crime for me in the entire film. He's the damsel in distress. He doesn't.
Bingo. Shad absolutely nailed it. That's the problem with this film. It is not a superhero story. It's a dude with a problem story, and it's not a good one because he has no agency. He doesn't go on an adventure. He doesn't have a quest. He doesn't have an objective, and he winds up the damsel in distress, and it's his family that has to save him, which is odd. It literally undermines the big payoff in the film when he has this cringe, but afterlife conversation with his father, and it almost could have worked, but it was so melodramatic, but it was very close, and it was just basically him and his father is saying, like, you've got to believe in yourself. It's basically the Captain Marvel plot, but the Captain will allow it. And the idea is when he wakes up from this dream, he breaks his chains and he gets out of the thing, and now he's Blue Beetle and he's going to kick some ass, and the very next thing that happens is the bad guys start kicking his ass, and his grandmother, with a weird superhero chain gun that fires lasers, saves his ass. And it's like, so they literally just undermine every single plot beat that would allow him to be a hero in this film.
Save anyone. Yep. He is the one that needs to get saved by his family.
What about how Blue Beetle essentially killed his father? Because when he was getting shot and he was protecting the family, the robot wanted to kill them all. and that would have meant they couldn't shoot anybody. But instead, he knocked them back. They got back up, caused more stress, made the father run, and then he had a heart attack running away.
We saw those wings chop a bus in half, and I'm like thinking, so someone died then because
those
it was a
people
very
should be
high
right down the walkway.
Like, there was one person even.
By the way, this is the weird new trope in superhero. What is the deal with this? Why do we need to see a bus get sliced in half in every single superhero movie now? This is so weird. Doctor Strange mom did it. I feel like I've seen at least one other one.
They did.
That'd be a great weapon.
It
Some
would be a
kind
great
of
weapon.
giant
Great
shield
weapon
that
he
could cut
doesn't
through
use.
things.
Well, my first thought when I saw that scene was, why didn't he just fly up? Why didn't the suit go, oh, we'll just hover over the bus rather than cut the fucking thing in half?
It was testing its shield thing.
Yeah, they wanted to show you things which they wouldn't use in the film.
Later on, when they were particularly useful, that probably would have been very useful with the battle.
That's my favorite. What also might have been interesting is if that had been an actual development arc of the story, is that the suit is malevolent, the suit is indifferent to human life, like the Terminator 2. Anybody remember this? Terminator 2, there's this scene where John Connor is having a good old time now that he's discovered that the Terminator has to do what he says. And he's literally like, the Terminator has him by the collar, and he's like, help, get him off of me. And these couple of punks come by, but they're actually good Samaritans, and like, hey, you having but in the meantime, as they're walking over, he discovers that he has the ability, that the Terminator has to do whatever he says. And so he tells, grab this dude. Yeah, and he's having fun. He's having fun with his new Terminator, basically just having him beat up these two guys that actually came over to help him. But what's interesting is when the Terminator decides to freaking shoot one of these punks, like, no, stop, put the gun down. Why did you do that? And he's like, because I'm a Terminator. But why? You can't just go on killing. You can't go killing people. He's like, why? Because you just can't. Why? It's like, and there's a whole story arc with that of like John Connor teaching the Terminator to value human life. Now, you could have had that with the Blue Beetle suit, but there's none of that in this.
Favorite trope in Hollywood movies these days. Showing shit that would be useful. And then never using it again.
They give him shit tons of moves that you obviously never see again. But one of the ones I was thinking of is like all of the Blue Beetle's abilities in the form of these random gadgets that just get thrown to the family. She's just like, do you remember when she picks up the power glove and the lady is just like, yeah, just press buttons. Yeah, just go for it. It's like, I was waiting for her to just fire off a missile or something.
That's how all the tech work, though. Like in Taco, when George Lopez was like, hey, I made a machine that could jam shit. It literally is just a red box with a button on it that does things.
But at least Ted Cord is a fucking guy who is the Blue Beetle and like created all this tech.
True. Yeah.
It was like a billionaire and all this shit. At least that him developing random shit makes sense. How they utilize it was stupid as fuck. I do have a question for Gary as someone who is familiar with Ted Cord and Jaime Reyes in the comics. How did you feel about how they incorporated a lot of, I was surprised there were so many, Ted Cord references.
Yes.
And also that they used the bug and like all this stuff that were very clear callbacks and references to Blue Beetle.
I was surprised that they, sorry, spoilers, they didn't kill Ted Cord and they were referencing it. And I thought that was probably the one part that was cool, but like that's it. That it was basically jangling keys, and it was nostalgia bait to show the original Blue. Well, the one that I know. It's not the original Blue Beetle.
The second one, but like the second one that people know.
Yeah, but all it was like a stationary costume on a mannequin. So I'm like, that's cool, but it's a stationary costume on a mannequin. And they're obviously going to bring him up later in the movie, which they did. For a sequel we're never gonna get. But yeah,
do you feel like that was the point of that though? That he was like, if you want me to come back, I'll bring back Ted Cord. You like him?
No. And honestly, I would have rather have seen Ted Cord's version. The one I read, the one that works better with Booster Gold. Quite frankly, they work better together. Jaime Reyes is fine. But that was during a really bad era of DC as well. This is what they were going for anyway with DC back in the day, was they wanted to have a Spider-Man. They wanted to try to have their own
That's the music.
Nerdrotic.com, please.
All right. Hat tip Friday Night Tights on Nerdrotic. Check it out. But anyway, that was fun. We had some fun, didn't we, chat? Did we have some fun with that? Where did Dia go? Come back. No, I'm just kidding. Anywho, yeah, what a bunch of bigots. What a bunch of absolute bigots who hated the movie because there were Latinx people in it. I'm sorry, I can't Latino people. Like, it's pronounced Latinx. It's Latinx. No, it's Latin. Do you like Latin? We could do Latin. we will give up Latinx in exchange for Latin. No, you woke asshole, go to hell. All right. Well, if we can have Latin, we'll throw in you're not a bigot for hating Blue Beetle. Deal? It's like anyhow. You know what the funniest part of it? It's like, so the internet's all wound up because because of the title, which is a reference, frankly, to the bigoted pandering of the filmmakers and the corporation that made it, and the false narrative that anyone that doesn't like the movie doesn't like it for those reasons. That's actually what they're making fun of. And of course, you know, that they're basically attributed pronoun bartering. Yes, we're bargaining for pronouns here. Anyhow, I just think it's funny to me that Ryan, who usually gets the reputation unfairly, he's the nicest guy in the world. Never heard a fly. But he gets the reputation for being the racist on the panel. And the funny thing is, he was defending the movie more than anyone else. He's basically saying, like, oh, there's a lot to like about the family. I appreciate they did this. They just could have done that. And it's like, look, see, if we can't talk about what's wrong with the film, it protects the corporation. It protects the filmmakers from all criticism. It allows them to launder their lies. To borrow a Dave Rubin expression, they are able to launder their lies by having fans fighting each other over nonsense that has nothing to do with what was being said. So anyway, I just thought I would share a little internet drama with you. And I hereby stand by Nerdrotic. This channel wouldn't exist without Nerdrotic. So I'll just say hat tip and a captain salute to Nerdrotic. That was an excellent opportunity to talk about one of my favorite channels on the internet. What'd I say? I said talk about. What did you hear? I said talk about. And I did get that very generous $10 super chat from Fu Man Blue. Thank you, my dear friend. So we might as well just talk about Stargate SG-1 a little bit. Where's my special banner? There it is. Okay. Yes, we'll do that. And then we'll get a proper background. We're in overtime now because we had a troll. This is exciting, guys. I had my first troll in the chat. This is very exciting. It's a very big day for the captain. Captain has never had a hostile audience member before. Oh, this is it's like breaking new ground. I have to admit, I'm surprised by how much energy that gave me. You'd think that you'd be like irritated. I don't know. I feel better than ever. All right, cool. So let's talk about a little Stargate. Now, the episode I'm watching right now is what is the name of this episode? They go to this planet. Very classic scenario in science fiction. They go to this planet. They're exploring the woods per usual. And a man comes running in terror up to them. Oh, you got to help me. You got to save me. Per usual. And they say, we're going to help you, stranger, whom we don't know who you are or where you're from. But they say, yeah, come with us. We'll help you. And they're on their way back to the Stargate because apparently there's nothing on this planet. There's nothing really going on. And then suddenly they are beamed up to a mothership, and in a very kind of Christopher Reeve Superman kind of style, they have this unseen, disembodied voice. It's basically like, you are guilty of trespass, and you will be remanded to prison for life. And so they're being sent to this. They're sent to this prison, and I have to say, I'm only about halfway through the episode because I was watching a lot of Twisted Metal, and regrettably, I was also watching Ahsoka. So I'm about halfway through the episode. But what I liked right off the bat is they get there, and it turns out they introduced a nice little lore thing in this episode, which is, I didn't know this until now. There's a pair of shoes that are just like severed feet still in the shoes that are just smoking on the steps below the Stargate. And they're like, what happened? Oh, no. He was standing next to the Stargate when it opened. I'm like, I didn't know this. I didn't know that if you stood next to the Stargate when that wave comes out, like they call it in the episode. They're like, oh, it's the great wave. That's what the people who don't know what the Stargate is call it. And Captain Carter's like, well, what you call the great wave is actually an unstable vortex that vaporizes anything that it comes in contact with when the Stargate is first opening. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. See, that's the kind of stuff I always loved as a sci-fi fan. Like when I was a kid, oh, look, Picard's fighting the Romulans. Who cares? But as soon as they start talking about we're losing containment on the magnetic constrictors, or we have to fine-tune the deflector beam to admit a tachyon burst, I'm like, tell me more. Like, that's just how I am. Like, I love the nerdy tech stuff. And it's probably part of what annoyed me so much about Blue Beetle. It's like, well, I want to know about the suit. Tell me about the suit. How does it work? Why does it work? What does it want? Who cares? Just watch the movie. Tacos! And so I quite appreciated that little piece of lore about the Stargate, that it will vaporize you, and that they think that's a way to get through it. Some of the prison, so they're in this penal colony, which is underground. It's a very cool set, by the way. It's probably one of my favorite sets they've done in the show so far, because it looks a little bit like a kind of jungle, but it's also very dark. It's got a very dark forest look to it, which is very cool. But it's like basically this underground cavern. Very interesting scenario, because immediately, Captain Carter's there, and a couple of let's just say thirsty-looking prisoners comes up, and that was a little scary. It was a little scary for Captain Carter, and I'm thinking, uh-oh. But then this kind old woman comes out who apparently runs the prison. Inexplicably, Susan Sarandon. No, I'm just kidding. So this kindly old woman comes out and says, she is not to be touched. And so it has been said. And then the prisoners, so now Captain Carter is safe. And she says, well, I could take care of myself, to the old woman. And the old woman's like, babe, yeah, you're in prison. So with all due respect, I'm sure you're very tough, but no, you can't. I thought that was very interesting dynamic, because I guess it was kind of a thing in the 80s and 90s. There were these kind of, like, I don't know how to put this exactly, sort of a naive approach to storytelling. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. An almost kind of not like naive attitude, for lack of a better term. Like characters would be in a situation where, okay, let's just face it. She is a super hot babe. She shows up in a prison. Look, bad things are going to happen, okay, in a co-ed prison. It's just the reality. And it's interesting that we live in a time where most television shows in the modern world, I think that would have been an obvious, like if this were Kurtzman Trek, like if this were Kurtzman Star Trek, I guarantee you, we would have went straight to, there's a rape gang. They're coming for her. Like, that's basically what would have been immediately what was going to happen if it were Kurtzman Trek. Because I can guarantee you the writers on Kurtzman Trek would have loved it. They would have loved that situation, because they could have been as bloodthirsty as possible. And what's interesting about a show in the early 90s, 80s, you could have these characters that had, maybe this was just kind of the more early phase of feminism, where it was like, oh, don't worry. She's a tough woman. She can take care of herself. She has this attitude of like, I can take care of myself. And I think any woman really in that situation would have been, I think, quite afraid. But not in like a falling to pieces kind of way, because she is in the military. She knows how to handle herself, but she would have been aware she's in danger, is my point. And I think, I kind of think that, like, what would have been better is if the men had immediately been like, form ranks, like get behind me, or something like that, to show that like they're immediately closing ranks to fight. I think that would have been cooler. Jack O'Neill immediately puts a plan into action to like start a brawl. Like if you're going to get to Carter, you're going to have to go through me. I think that would have been rad. And it was kind of a missed opportunity. I think it was because the episode is like, we just need to get this issue out of the way. I think that's what it was. The episode plot was like, we just need to get this issue out of the way so that the viewer isn't worried about it because it's a real concern. Don't worry, Captain Carter's safe in this prison. Nothing bad's going to happen to her. Don't worry about it. Okay, now we can get to the story. And I feel like that's what it was. And I wouldn't have wanted to see the whole episode fixated on it, but I would have liked it to be more of like, no, they have to figure this out. Like, there was a great episode of Star Trek Voyager, I thought, that did a pretty good job of a kind of similar situation, which is Harry Kim and Tom Paris wind up inexplicably in an enemy prison, in an alien prison. And it's called The Chute. That's the name of the episode. It's called The Chute. They basically, you go down this chute into this prison and you're just in it. There's no guards. It's like Rura Pente in Star Trek 6. We're going Star Trek deep lore here. And it's just a free-for-all. It's just a free-for-all. And so the very first thing that happens is they get attacked, they get robbed, people steal their shit. And kind of the whole thrust of the episode is that Tom and Harry have to work together to survive in this prison because they're outnumbered. They have to kind of build alliances. But there comes a moment when Tom is wounded from a fight and he's becoming delirious from an infection. And Harry is literally having to like stand over him and protect him from the other prisoners that are trying to get at Tom and take his stuff. And it's a really great moment in the episode because later, Tom wakes up in sickbay and he's like, I remember a man standing over me and saying, this is my friend and no one will touch him. And I thought that was a really good like story element. And so in that situation, they were very vulnerable. They were outnumbered, but they found a way to survive in the prison. And so I just think that would have been a better kind of plot arc for the Captain Carter situation there. It's like, they have to figure out a way to make it known in the prison. But then moving on. So the next thing that happens is they kind of split up and they decide that one pair is going to go talk to the old lady who's in charge of the prison and figure out Daniel and Jack. I think it was Daniel and Jack. Or no, was it Carter and Jack? I can't remember which pair it was. But anyway, basically Jack goes to figure out from the old lady how they're going to get this. I think it's Carter and Jack. And they're figuring out from the old lady how to get the Stargate working. Meanwhile, I love what Jack says to Teal'c, which is like, Teal'c, go first and look scary. I thought that's actually pretty hilarious. That's pretty awesome. One thing I do like about the show, it's a good reminder. Joss Whedon did this very well in Firefly. He did this very well in the Avengers films. He really had a knack for characters with different kind of strengths and weaknesses, different personality types, pairing off in interesting ways, serving as a kind of foil to each other, but always playing to the best strengths of those characters. And so I really like how, right away, Jack is like, Teal'c is good at looking scary, and that's what we need in a prison situation. We're in Gen Pop. We need the baddest dude to go first. I thought that's cool. I really like that. I think Jack O'Neill's a great character. He's a lot of fun. And that's about as far as I got. I know that they've discovered cold fusion. The old lady has cold fusion, and they're going to use that to get the superconducting materials in the Stargate working so they can dial home. And that's as far as I got. Fu Man Blue says maybe she could have them sign a no rape contract like the one in that company. Oh no. Oh yeah. No, I know, right? It's like you're referring, of course, to how there were some, I think it was some companies that famously, like some tech companies where they had all their employees sign, all the men in the company signed I pledge not to rape any women in this company. And I'm like, what is that? Like, dude, if you need to that's a weird situation. That's a weird, this is why wokeness is such a freaking mind virus. It's such a mind virus because it's like, if you were in a situation in which there was so little civilization that was a real danger, a freaking piece of paper that everyone signs is not going to dissuade a monster from doing what a monster does. But on the other hand, you're making people sign this who are civilized enough to say, okay, listen, it's not, look, this is a big drawback. You know, it's a really good benefits package, but it's something of a compromise. But I'm willing to agree to no rapes while I'm here. Oh my God. No, I don't think that would work in prison Gen Pop. But I do think what would work is, I don't know, I think a cool little brawl where they're just beating the crap, let them beat the crap out of a couple prisoners, then have the old lady show up and break it up and be like, hey, know what? She's off limits, folks. She's off limits. It's a real concern. It's a real concern. Dude, I'll tell you what, I was reading a book series. What is the name of this book series? It was, the title of the first book is The Warded Man. And it's by Peter V. Brett. Peter V. Brett. It's called The Warded Man. And it's part of a series of fantasy novels called The Demon Cycle. The Demon Cycle. A friend of mine at work years ago got me turned on to this. I think I can just put it on the screen here. On screen, Anson. Let's go. Yes. Let's go to share screen. There you go. Here it is. The Warded Man. Peter V. Brett. Hey, you ever, Fu Man Blue asks, do you ever talk about those Chris Hemsworth NF movies? Are you talking about Extraction? C. Hemsworth, NF movies. Help me out, Fu Man Blue. I need more. I need more. Netflix, Chris Hemsworth. Oh, so you're probably you're thinking about Extraction? I could watch Extraction. You want me to watch Extraction? I'll watch it for you. I'll give it a good old-fashioned captain's review. I don't have a real job, so. This is my real job. This is my real job. And, yeah, I'll take a look at those. I have they're kind of on my list. They're on my watch list, which is where things go to not be watched. So anyway, The Warded Man is basically, it's a pretty cool little fantasy world. Unfortunately, right around book 5 or 6, this whole thing kind of goes off the rails for me and I lost interest. And I hate to say that. I hate to say it, but I really did. I really lost interest after like book 4 or 5 because it's something about, I think what happened is the characters got just a little too OP. But basically, the concept of the story is that it's a fantasy world in which demons rise from the ether every single night. And they're demons of every kind. They're almost undefeatable. They appear everywhere in the world. And literally, the only way you can avoid them is to create wards on the ground that prevent them from crossing the threshold. So you can create a kind of magical ward that keeps them away. The problem is creating these wards is very difficult. It's time consuming. It takes a lot of work. Everybody every night has to make sure their wards are looking good. Only certain people can make wards. You have to hire a warder to do it. And it's literally like if you step outside the wards that are around your house at night, you will die. Like demons will tear you apart and kill you. And like there's no army in the world big enough or strong enough to oppose them. And it's interesting too. It's like every now and then the wards in a city get broken and demons get through. And it's always a nightmare. It's always a slaughter, a massacre. It's always like something terrible that happens to a city. And there's also this very cool tension in it, which is if you're a traveler and the sun is going down, like you have got to find somewhere to hole up or you're going to die, or you've got to be good at setting up wards around your camp. And even then, wards aren't foolproof. Like sometimes if like something, like if you draw a ward in the dust, for example, and the dust gets messed up, the ward is dead and now they can cross over and kill you. So it's kind of an interesting idea for a fantasy world. Well, anyway, the main character, he's kind of like Guts from Berserk. He's just full of rage. He's kind of like the kid from Attack on Titan. He hates the demons. He hates them. He wants revenge on them for killing his family, and he'll do anything to rid the world of demons for good. And he's basically the main character of the story, of the whole series. And I won't say much more than that, because there's a very cool mechanic that he discovers that changes the game, let's say. And I don't want to just, because when it's revealed, it's very cool. It's very cool. So there was a lot of potential in this series. Anyway, why do I say all that? Anyway, well, there was one of the books where one of the main characters, she's a babe, she's a super babe, and she's traveling with another, not the main character I just described, but like another character. And they just happen upon some strangers in the road, and the strangers pretend to be nice. And it's like, but then it turns out that they're really just outlaws. And the very next chapter, because then you realize she's in danger now, because they're basically threatening to, you know what. And then the very next chapter is just, it happened. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, oh my God, I'm not used to that. I'm not, I'm used to the fact, like, if a woman is in peril in a situation, usually the next thing that's going to happen is the hero is going to find a way to get them out of it. And literally, it was just the next chapter is like, it happened to her. And it was not pretty. And I was like, damn, that takes some commitment as a writer, I have to admit. But it's part of her that gets woven into her character, that like that's something that she survived. And so it's very, I don't know why I brought that up. It was just came into the captain's head, and there it is. Now it is out on the internet forever. Now check out the Warded Man, though. It's actually it's a pretty good fantasy novel. I should probably finish the story, but just something happened at a late stage in the novels where just the characters became insanely powerful, and it started to kill the tension in the story. And I think part of the problem is he introduced so many characters that it got to a point where I started to get bored with some of the characters. Like some of the characters, I'm just like, there's not much happening over here. This is mostly just a character kind of whining about this or that. Kind of like Ahsoka. It's like once anything devolves into the characters are just reminiscing, that's not a good sign. Like once the characters are just reminiscing about things for no reason, and look, a little bit of this is fine. I'm not saying it has to be perfect. It is fine to once in a while have a little bit of a lull in the tension, a little bit of just the characters, or a little bit of nostalgia. That's nothing wrong with that. You just can't rely on it. So anyway, there you go. Fu Man Blue. Hey, how about that? Peter V. Brett, the captain just sold a book for you. Fu Man Blue just ordered the first one. It's pretty good. I got to say, it's a great setup. And the second one is pretty boss, too. I like the second book in the series is pretty good. And I'll tell you what. He's a good world builder, definitely. And I will say that, like, the best thing about his world building is he's able to create these different cultures in the world. And he is really good at having a culture stick to what their culture is. Like, I would love it if he could write really good science fiction alien races. I think he'd be really good at that, this writer, because maybe he has written science fiction. I don't know, but he would be good at that because he's very good at building kind of like their traditions, their beliefs, their legal structure, and then he puts them out in the world and they really stick to it. Dude, you got ISOM? Oh, how about that? Fu Man Blue says, I'm reading ISOM, then back to Blood and Oak. That would be your dear humble captain's book, Blood and Oak, a rousing adventure about young John Sullivan, a midshipman in the Navy, out to save his family from the Barbary pirates. So awesome. Thanks for the shout out there, Fu Man Blue. And I'm super envious. I don't have my ISOM yet because I ordered late. So, but I got the 3 covers. I'm super excited. I cannot wait. Some cool stuff going on in that cover. Dude, I love what Eric's doing. I think I love how he's carefully building things out. He's bringing in new writers, new artists, and he's creating, he's building the Rippaverse. And I think ISOM is a great starting hero for his story as well, because speaking, of course, of the Young Rippa, that would be Young Rippa 59 on YouTube, and the author, creator, founder of Rippaverse Comics. And I would say starting out with Isom as a very close to the ground hero, very smart, because you can just carefully build on that lore. You should, Foobhead Blue, you should talk about your book as much as Jeremy talks about his coffee. You know, I absolutely should. I absolutely should. I don't know why exactly I don't. I don't know why I don't exactly these days. I think it's probably because I'm working on stuff and I'm usually focused on what I'm working on in the future. I'm not good at kind of thinking about what I've already done. But yeah, so good tip. Good tip. And I will do that. I will do that. And I quite enjoy myself some Coffee Brand coffee. What else do we have? Did we hit everything in the stack of stuff? I think we did. Oh, you know what? I have not watched this video. And since I'm kind of in a reaction mood today, how about one last video for the road? What do you think, chat? Shall we?
Oh, we got some Hollywood strike news. Let's talk about the real victims of the situation, the late night talk show hosts who
Look at these
really missed the
losers.
spotlight. That's what I think this is. And it's funny. I'm going to show you just how popular these guys are. So Jimmy Kimmel says major life update for the remainder of the strike. Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Steph Myers, John Oliver, and I are joining forces for a new podcast called Strike Force 5. Hear the first episode tomorrow at 8:30. 8:30, so August 30th. All proceeds go to basically support the strike. So here's what they put out.
One more time
right here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jimmy Fallon.
I'm
Stephen
Colbert.
I'm Jimmy Kimmel. I thought when you said Jimmy, you meant me, Jimmy, but you meant Jimmy.
I always mean you.
But when you say Seth Meyers, who do you mean?
I mean John Oliver.
It's
the
five of us together for maybe.
Wow, really funny. So they like, oh, we're gonna talk for an hour together daily, and it's really funny. Life has kind of went on no problem without these guys. In fact, it's a little bit better because there's a lot.
Dude, these are genius comedians at work, are they not? Are they just not? Dude, you know, Chrissy Mayer is funnier on Simpcast than these five guys are in this one stupid clip.
A lot less propaganda. And
dude, just quick sidebar. I don't know any Chrissy Mayer fans. You did see her just now in that Blue Beetle clip, but I just love this. I've still got the Stargate going, which, hey, nothing wrong with that. We'll leave Stargate up. Anyway, there was like, do you remember Melanie Mack had that weirdo stalker after, which was makes my skin crawl to think about it. He actually started, so the Simpcast was really just taking the piss out of him. Well, he showed up to the chat on the Simpcast. I just happened to catch it one day, and Melanie Mack's stalker was arguing with Chrissy Mayer, and Chrissy Mayer was like, it was the most funny thing. She was having like this kind of like, she was almost like his mother talking to him, like, oh, no, come on, man. Like, no, I think what's happening is you're this, you're that. I don't think you understand how people experience it. Like, she was giving good advice, but I love how she had this like, ooh, I want a stalker. Like, she had the, oh, cool. I want to talk to a stalker. She's an odd duck, and I love that. I just love that about Chrissy Mayer. She is up for whatever, which is hilarious. You know what's so funny too is I met her and Lila at the meetup. I may have told this story before, but I met them at the meetup, and I have to tell you, there is something about YouTubers. It's like that you can, and actors, whenever you meet them, they love the limelight. They like being the center of attention, and they really are as bubbly as you would imagine. Like, it's funny. And Chris Gore, like, that guy does not have an off switch. The guy will just party and hang out all night long. He just will. But anyway, but they were super fun, very welcome. And it's funny because I was about to shake Chrissy's hand, and she gave me a hug. I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, I'm like Peter Parker, like, oh, this is nice. And so then the next day, I'm at her comedy show. And she talks about how, like, oh, yeah, it was so nice meeting some of you guys at the meetup. That was super cool. I saw some of you guys, and it looked like it had been a while. And I figured, you could use a hug. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. Wait, what? Because I'm thinking, oh, I must have made an impression. I actually sent this in a super chat the Friday. I was like, oh, I must have made an impression. Like, oh, okay, yeah. No, she's hilarious. Love it. All right, we continue. I want to hear what Yellow Flash has to say about these losers.
Official state news, as they like to push. Jimmy Kimmel being the biggest sellout of them all, by the way. So they put this out. 4.5 million views. It's a lot of impressions. It had some traction. My real question was, with this huge announcement, okay, out of 4.5 million views, how many people actually followed the Strike Force 5 account? That's right. 5,898 followers.
Oof. Oh,
this is the combined strength of every late night talk show, and all they could do was get 6,000 people to come watch their show. Well,
now, so that is the brain trust right there. Let's just for fun, shall we? What is the current count for Nerdrotic? How many subscribers are we at? This is just one of his channels. He has multiple channels. But 845,000 subscribers for Nerdrotic. And the typical views on one episode of Friday Night Tides, live viewers, is like 12,000. Last time I looked. So just think about that. Jeremy is running a great show on D-Day Cobra called the Cobra Cast, and I've been checking in on that one quite a bit. He gets like 5,000. I would think he gets he typically gets about 2,000, but he's had as many as 5,000 viewers on a stream. These guys can't get 5,000 people to just follow him on, more than 5,000 people to follow him on Twitter.
Follow their show. Well, you can take a look at the Spotify account itself, where it is. I would say I feel like this is free advertisement, but none of you are going to go watch this. I'm very confident about that. So I don't care, because none of you will go watch this, because none of you will probably watch.
Are you excited for the Strike Force 5? Oh, man. You know what? I want to see one protagonist react to the Strike Force 5. No, I don't want to be mean to one protagonist. One protagonist is a nice guy. No judgment whatsoever. Someone's got to like Ahsoka, okay? There's always got to be one. I'm just saying, I would like to see his reaction to this.
Watching them in the first place. Nobody really cares about these people. Their ratings basically consist of old people falling asleep in front of the TV while it's still on. That's basically what late night talk show hosts get for ratings. The media likes to push them. Boy, oh boy, do they like to push them. Look at this for the announcement, by the way. Vulture, Variety, Hollywood Reporter,
Good Lord,
Billboard, Daily Mail, Bleeding Cool, USA Today, Now This News, KTLA. It goes on and on and on. They're starting a podcast. They're teaming up.
It's a nice thematic close to the episode today, because when I opened the stream, I was talking about, let's just cut the shit for a minute. How did we get here? How did we get here to Ahsoka? And, sometimes even in our very candid corner of the internet, we tend to downplay this a little. We talk about story structure. We talk about, well, this family, the family dynamic could have been better. The character could have had agency. Oh, it's, these corporate executives are greedy. They're not creative. They're talentless. Look, here's the deal. Woke, crazy political ideology has ruined all of these franchises. And how has this been allowed to, did you notice that in the early days of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I will never forget this. I'm talking going back to between 2008 to around 2013, 2014. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was generally not liked by critics. They generally, even when they were praising an individual movie, they complained. They complained that these films were interconnected. They didn't like that. Why didn't they like it? Because they were the snooty, approved intellectual class. And the intellectual class thinks that every film must be its own piece of art, darling. And and it was very lowbrow that all of these films were chained to the plot elements of the others. And they really poo-pooed this until something changed, didn't it? Because now every time we say we don't like what's happening with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what are they doing with are they ignoring all this continuity they just created with Loki? What's going on there? And what do you hear from all those same critics? Oh, it's so delightful how Secret Invasion is paying off the storyline in Captain Marvel, and it's setting up the story for Marvels. And it's like, now, why is that? Why have they changed their tune? I'm going to tell you exactly why. The same reason that they are clapping seals for, I cannot sully the Stargate banner with the faces of the 5. Okay, the Strike Force 5. So we got to fix this. There we go. It's the same reason that they are clapping seals for these losers, because they're towing the line that the political machine wants. They are laundering the message. That is the only reason. Why do we have Ahsoka? Why do we have Mandalorian Season 3? Why do we have the failure of Game of Thrones Season 8? Why do we have, Star Wars has become a feckless, awful brand? Why do we have Marvel Cinematic Universe is now full of insufferable girl bosses, rings of power, all of it? They are all protected, celebrated, and loved for one reason only. Not because of their craftsmanship, not because of anything they've done in storytelling. It is one reason and one reason only. They toe the line. They launder the lies of the message. And these 5 idiots are useful because they will toe the lie. They will launder the lies of the political propaganda of the woke radical crazies. That is why there is all these headlines.
They're going to save the world. Isn't this scab work, by the way?
I know,
the fact
right?
That they're doing this, even though they're saying that they're going to, all the proceeds.
That's the privilege. If you toe the message, nothing is out of your reach, is it? They get a total pass. Why? Because they know that if this podcast succeeds, it'll be competition to Friday Night Tights. Ha! Never gonna.
They're going to go to help the strike. Isn't this kind of scab work? I guarantee you they've got a producer or a team or somebody helping them do this. Highly doubt they're just doing this themselves. So kind of funny, but going back to the actual Spotify account.
Agreed.
I don't see any views on here, but I do see reviews. 4.3 stars. Wow, that's a lot, you might say. You know how many people have reviewed it? 7 people.
Oh, no. Oh.
7 people.
7.
Wow, what a hit. Amazing. As Benny Johnson says, this is what irrelevance and zero audience looks like. His post, I'm pretty sure. Okay, it hasn't yet. I was going to say it's ratioed it, but it hasn't. Who are the people liking this? Do you think that they have bot accounts?
Oh,
just
100%.
Shit? Because it doesn't make sense they would get 14,000 likes, and
they're also protected. I guarantee. Look, as much as I admire Elon and what he's done, I don't trust him. And frankly, there's stuff happening on Twitter. X, I should say. I still think that those that are towing the message are protected and allowed to, get a more favorable, it's funny. These assholes could say anything about, the most controversial topics. They could talk about, 9-month, babyectomies, let's just call them for the sake of the algorithm. They could talk about the most controversial topics as long as it's a leftist viewpoint. They're protected. They're no danger to advertisers. They're not going to get deboosted. It's only if you say something that goes against that ideology that you're going to get deboosted.
Only 6,000 people following them. Oh, it went up a little bit. With all this, look at this. Today Show is talking about this late night podcast. Vanity Fair makes a tweet about this late night podcast. There's so many people, all of them themselves, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, they're all talking about it.
So Hat Tip Yellow Flash full video on Yellow Flash 2 channel. Check it out. I got to say, won't this be a fun experiment? Look, I love how the media is just all for this. Oh, look at how they love to just masturbate each other, right? they just love each other so much. It's, they are going to throw everything at making this podcast successful. And won't it be interesting if it just can't get any traction? It would show how totally irrelevant they are. I mean, they are. You would think that if you had all the media pushing your podcast, you should at least get a mediocre performance, wouldn't you think? And I suspect they're not even going to get that. Fu Man Blue says, I can't believe that the word Twitter is actually going to fade back to its original obscurity. I thought it would always be in the lingo. It might still. Who knows whether X is going to work or not? It's such an odd choice, changing the name to X. And then Max, I think changing the name from HBO Max to just Max is just awful. HBO, the home box office, ladies and gentlemen. This is an iconic brand. It's so weird. It's such a weird choice. It would be like Amazon changing their name to like the retailer. It's like the, online retail. Why would you do that? Amazon is an iconic word in our society now. It's so weird. And it's like X is the most generic tech billionaires, man. There's no figuring them out, okay? If you've ever seen the show Silicon Valley, it's very you definitely get an interesting portrait. It's like tech billionaires are just they're just thinking in another way. So do I have a theory on the Max thing? Fu Man Blue asks, why would they if I had to guess, I would say probably their rationale is that they're trying to create. I think they're trying to distinguish it from the idea of like a cable network, because a cable network is a different kind of consumer, is my guess. That the cable brand is HBO. I mean, it stands for home box office, which was a really cool concept back when it was founded. Like in the early days of HBO, it was a very cool idea. It was like, because people forget that like until video cassettes came out, you couldn't watch a movie at home. The only way you could see a movie at home was if it played on the TV. And if it played on the TV, there was going to be commercials. And even with VHS in like the 80s, you still had, you had to go rent it from the video store, or you had to have the tape. So when a movie came on TV, it was a big deal sometimes. But with HBO, the home box office, you literally got like recently shown in theaters movies. Like you got recently in theaters movies and there was no commercials and you could just watch them. And that was a very cool idea. So I remember like when I was a kid, we did not have HBO. HBO was something rich people had. Like that 100%. That's what it was. It was a wealthy person's channel. And if someone said, oh, my parents have HBO, it was like, whoa. It was like they might as well have shown up to school in a sports car. They'd like, well, yeah, so we have HBO in our house, so I don't know what it's like to watch Independence Day with commercials. I'm sorry, I can't relate to that experience. And I'm like, can I come over to your house, please? And then, of course, there was all the discussion about what kinds of movies they played after hours on HBO, which, of course, was of no interest to a young man entering puberty. Which is another reason why it was like, I'm not sure if I want you to go over to so-and-so's house. His parents have HBO. Oh, don't worry, Mom. They won't let us watch it after 10 p.m. So anyway, my point is it's a cable brand. It's an iconic cable brand. And maybe in their harebrained scheme, they're saying, well, we want to dominate, all these like streaming services. They want to own the whole thing. They want to corner the market. Everybody wants to be Netflix. I suppose, if you want to be a competitor to Netflix, because Netflix is just Netflix. There's no Netflix channel. There's no original Netflix company. Netflix is just Netflix. Yes, it used to be a mail orders rental service, but then they converted to just streaming. So that is their only legacy. And I suppose if you're trying to become the new Netflix, it might seem a little bit like you're tied down by having a reputation as a cable company that has a streaming service. So they don't want to be thought of as a cable company that has a streaming service. They just want to be the streaming service that gives you the max, The problem is, I think that misses the forest for the trees, which is that I actually kind of think that when HBO Max did come out originally, it kind of had that air about it of like it was a premium streaming service. I'm serious about this. When they first debuted HBO Max, you could only get it if you knew someone, if you already had the cable channel. And I remember the first time I got an HBO Max sign-in, I was using my buddy's sign-in. He was a friend of mine. His parents had an HBO subscription. And so I used his login to watch like Game of Thrones and stuff like that. And so even then, there was this kind of air of like, this is something special. It's something elite. And then when they made it to where anyone could just do HBO Max, you no longer had to have a cable. It was more expensive than Netflix. So I got to tell you, I think HBO has always had a reputation for being just a notch above, even among like Showtime and Stars and Cinemax. HBO, man, HBO's premium. HBO is like the high level. And I feel like saying HBO Max was elevating because it was like, oh yeah, well, there's Netflix and there's Paramount and then there's HBO Max, which is more expensive than Netflix. Dude, it's like Apple products. There's an old saying in marketing. You can be the most expensive or the least expensive and succeed, but you don't want to be in between. You either want to be the most expensive in your space or the least. And why is that? Because if you're the most expensive, it means you are the brand. You are the premium. And that's kind of what Apple has set themselves up as. And I think HBO Max would have been wise to do the same because their content, frankly, is better. They produce HBO, I would say, on balance, produces better content than Netflix, way better content than Disney Plus. I mean, HBO knows how to make TV shows. Chris Gore frequently observes this. They've been doing this for decades. They know how to make really good TV. They basically pioneered what we kind of consider the modern format of long-form TV show storytelling with The Sopranos. The Sopranos was like the OG. That's really the show that started the whole trend of shows like House of Cards, Breaking Bad, did I say Game of Thrones already? Game of Thrones, House of Cards, Breaking Bad, those kind of iconic long-form stories. Really, The Sopranos on HBO sort of paved the way for that kind of a format. So that's my theory. Boomman Blue says, yeah, Cinemax and I were tight in 82. Yeah. Or Skinemax. Skinemax, as they called it. All right, my dear sailors and Starnauts. Well, I hope we had fun tonight. And without Sopranos, there's no Breaking Bad. Fight me. I know. No way. No way. Absolutely. I'll never. In fact, I once read a really great article, which was this was back when Breaking Bad was still airing. And it was basically a reviewer who was arguing that the 4 greatest television shows ever made were The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, The Wire. And what the hell was the 4th one? What was the 4th one? It's like, Mad Men. That was basically his top 4 of all time. Mad Men, The Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad. He thought those were the 4 greatest shows. And of those 4, he felt Breaking Bad was the best, which I agree with. But I really enjoyed his reasoning because essentially what he was arguing was that the difference between Breaking Bad and the other shows, The Wire, The Sopranos, and Mad Men, was that all 3 of those shows, Mad Men, they were all about characters that were products of their institution. So in other words, Don Draper is a product of his time. He's a product of that kind of post-war American culture of, just making money, boozing, chasing women, that kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of chauvinistic male attitude, right? But just that he was a product of his time, was Don Draper. Then you had Tony Soprano, who was a product of his family. He was a product of his family, his upbringing, his loyalty to his tribe, and to essentially what his family was all about, which was the family business. And then you had The Wire, which was these characters in The Wire are a product of their society. They're a product, these criminals, these cops, they're all a product of the system that they are sort of enthralled to. And that really all 3 of those shows were a kind of commentary on those institutionalized characters and how their lives play out according to what that institutionalized created. Breaking Bad, on the other hand, he argued, was different. Breaking Bad posited the idea of a character, that being Walter White, who is an otherwise mild-mannered, civilized man, making the conscious decision to transform himself into a criminal. And not just a criminal, but he liked it. Like he liked being a criminal. So in other words, we were watching a character study of a good man turning into a monster. That's basically what he says. Because, Tony Soprano begins and ends the series as Tony Soprano. Don Draper begins and ends the series as Don Draper. The Wire, all the characters in that show basically end either dead or where they started. But never do their lives never are they able to improve their lot in life. Walter White, on the other hand, makes the conscious choice to change the kind of man he is. And we watch him change over the course of those 4 seasons. And that's why he considered it an even better show than those other 4. Have no idea who that reviewer was. I can't remember it. Can't find the article anymore. Just loved that take on it. And I tend to agree. And I find it more interesting to follow characters like Walter White. That's more interesting to me than characters like Don Draper or Tony Soprano, who are products of their environment. I like protagonists that change over time. I like protagonists that, they start out one way and they end a totally different way. I just think that's super cool. Super cool. So Fu Man Blue says, agreed. Breaking Bad is the best. Agreed. So that is our show for tonight. This is Captain Garrett of the Captain's Cast on Swords and Starships. Please do like and subscribe. Love the Captain, hate the Captain. You are welcome in this chat to have a little fun with us and to learn. So anyhow, a salute to Fu Man Blue. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Thank you for joining me. And have a great Thursday. I will see you back here on Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And until next time, this is Captain Garrett saying, I will see you out there.